Hi guys. Tonight, we're venturing into the harsh, unforgiving world of the medieval winters. Imagine the chill biting into your bones as you trudge through a landscape swallowed by endless white, where the air feels like it could freeze your breath mid-exhale. It's the sort of cold that feels like a punishment if you were living in the Middle Ages. This is the kind of reality you'd face during the dead of winter. If you didn't have a proper shelter, well, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, feel free to post your location and local time below. Let's share a moment of connection before we delve deeper into this cold, historical world. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin. The world you've just stepped into isn't one of warm blankets and central heating. It's a world where every storm could spell disaster, where the sun's weak rays in winter do little to combat the biting winds. Medieval winters were deadly. The landscapes were cold, barren, and often covered in thick layers of snow, which could fall suddenly and with no warning. Farmers, who relied on the land for everything, had to be prepared because when the snow started falling, there was no going back to the comforts of modern life. You were at the mercy of the storm. Life for a medieval farmer during winter was more than just surviving, it was about outsmarting the weather. The first step in that survival game? Building a shelter. And it wasn't just any shelter. It needed to withstand wind and snow, to trap heat, and to shelter you and your animals from the deadly chill. Building a shelter during these long months of cold wasn't a luxury. It wasn't about comfort. It was about surviving another blizzard and emerging on the other side, alive and with your crops, livestock, and family intact. So, how did medieval farmers tackle this monumental task? The answer, surprisingly, wasn't always as simple as just throwing together some logs or walls. Survival meant using what nature offered: wood, stone, clay, earth, and the warmth of the hearth. They were masters of using available materials with practical ingenuity. At the same time, survival didn't end at the construction of walls and roofs. It was about constant upkeep and adaptation to the unpredictable nature of the winter. The structures themselves had to be as adaptable as the people who lived in them. As we explore how medieval farmers built their shelters, you'll see how the lines between necessity and innovation blurred, creating homes that weren't just places to sleep, but were, quite literally, life-saving. The biting winds begin to howl, sweeping through the narrow streets and open fields of medieval villages. You can hear the distant moan of a storm brewing, the skies darkening as snowflakes begin to dance from the heavens. The ground beneath your feet, frozen solid, creaks with the weight of the coming blizzard. Your heart skips a beat. This is no ordinary snowstorm. This is the kind of snowstorm that could bury a home in mere hours. The air grows colder with each passing moment, your breath leaving wisps of white in the chill. Now, imagine yourself a medieval farmer, standing at the threshold of your humble abode, clutching whatever you have in hand to secure the shelter. The house isn't just a place of rest. It's the fortress you and your family depend on, a place to ride out the fury of the storm outside, a place to endure what feels like the apocalypse of nature. These blizzards weren't just uncomfortable, they were potentially deadly. Medieval winters were harsh, unpredictable, and unforgiving. Without the luxury of modern weather forecasts or snowplows, every snowstorm was a gamble. Would you make it through? Would your roof hold up under the weight of the snow? Would your livestock survive the biting cold? Or would they freeze in their pens? These were questions that gnawed at every farmer's mind during winter, making the construction of a shelter not just a matter of comfort, but a matter of life and death. In the early medieval period, before communities had access to sturdy stone buildings or the means to transport advanced materials, farmers worked with what was available. The materials they had at their disposal were often local and natural: wood, stone, thatch, and the earth itself. But while the materials may have been simple, the purpose behind their use was anything but. A medieval shelter had to serve as protection against the bitter cold, shelter from the constant threat of blizzards, and a safe haven for both the family and the animals that shared the space. Your home? small and modest, might be made of timber, with walls reinforced by thatch, wattle, or mud. You've seen this type of construction many times before, so you don't think twice about the practical simplicity of it. But now, in the midst of the storm, you're beginning to understand the true genius behind it. The thatch roof, for instance, while seemingly simple, could keep out snow when properly packed and maintained. Snow may pile on top of the roof, but because of the natural insulation provided by thatch, the interior of the home could remain surprisingly warm. You might be wondering, how does it manage to stay warm in a roof made of straw? It's simple, really. The thick layers of thatch acted as a natural insulator. While snow piled up on the roof, it served a double purpose. It shielded the structure from the wind, while keeping the heat trapped inside. Of course, this wasn't a perfect solution. Thatch, when not maintained properly, could leak or collapse under the weight of the snow. But when done right, it was an effective and natural method for combating the cold. As you stand outside, you can hear the winds shifting, the sound of snowflakes now hitting the ground in a rhythmic pattern. You hurry back inside, knowing the storm will only worsen. The hearth within your home crackles with warmth, its orange glow cutting through the thick shadows. It's not just the flickering flames that are essential during these storms. The hearth was more than a source of heat, it was the heart of the home, where everything happened, from cooking to drying clothes to simply gathering around for warmth. It's hard to overstate how crucial the hearth was. Without it, a medieval farmer's home was nothing but four walls to trap in the cold. The hearth was the center of life, literally. It warmed the home, provided light during the long winter nights, and offered a place for the family to gather in unity. The heat radiated through the room, and the aroma of burning wood filled the air, a familiar scent that became synonymous with survival. In fact, the hearth was one of the few things in your home that could combat the cold effectively. Farmers and their families would spend hours in front of it, letting the warmth seep into their bones, exchanging stories, and finding comfort in each other's presence. But, as with all medieval homes, the comfort was relative. The warmth provided by the hearth wasn't infinite. It was a small fire in a house with thin walls, drafty windows, and little insulation beyond the thatched roof. If you were lucky, the walls would be reinforced with mud or wattle, a simple yet effective barrier against the winds. But this wasn't a guarantee. In fact, many homes in medieval villages suffered from leaks in the walls, cracks in the windows, and constant drafts. There were no double-glazed windows or insulated doors, only the patchwork of materials that nature provided. Still, the medieval farmer made do, and when it came to surviving the blizzards that could bury entire villages under feet of snow, survival often meant getting creative with what little you had. You would likely have constructed a shelter that was partially underground, taking advantage of the earth's natural insulation. Digging down into the ground provided a level of warmth that could not be achieved by just building above it. The earth around you acted as a buffer, keeping the inside of the shelter warmer than the freezing temperatures above. The walls of your home might be a mixture of stone and mud, built not just for stability, but to hold in the heat that the fire provided. Stone walls, though colder in the initial touch, retained warmth longer than wood or thatch, providing a steady, albeit slow, warmth throughout the day and night. The earth and stone kept the cold at bay, but your firewood so carefully prepared and rationed was what truly kept you alive. It's easy to think of firewood as just a practical tool, but in medieval times, firewood was more than just a resource, it was a lifeline. Gathering and storing firewood was one of the most important tasks of the year, done long before the first snowfall hit. Without enough wood, you would have no way to heat the shelter, cook food, or keep the animals warm. In a way, firewood was the unsung hero of winter survival. As you settle into your shelter, hearing the wind howl outside, the warmth from the hearth feels more precious than ever. You and your family huddle together for warmth, the fire crackling in the background. There's a sense of safety here, even as the storm rages on outside. It's a reminder of how, Despite the brutal cold and unpredictability of the weather, you're not entirely at the mercy of nature. You have adapted, built, and found ways to survive in this wild world. But it's not just about the shelter. It's about the way you use the land, the environment, and the materials around you. The roof, the walls, the fire, everything works together. A delicate balance that lets you ride out the storm. As the snow continues to fall, you know that while the shelter may not be perfect, it's the best you can do with what you have. And tonight, that's enough. As the storm rages outside, the air inside your shelter is thick with the scent of burning wood. The fire crackles, its warmth pushing back the chill creeping in through the cracks in the walls. You might find yourself drifting into a quiet reverie, lulled by the flickering light and the sound of the wind battering the roof. But your thoughts can't help but return to the question at hand. How did medieval farmers construct shelters that could withstand not only the snow, but the punishing cold of these fierce storms? Building a shelter wasn't just about keeping out the cold. It was about ensuring that you and your family could endure in a space that wasn't just functional, but would stand up to the dangers of winter, especially during blizzards that could come out of nowhere. The importance of a well-built shelter in medieval times cannot be overstated. Without it, survival rates plummeted. Families relied on their homes to shelter them not only from the snow but from the freezing winds that could turn a blizzard into a death sentence. A key element in medieval shelter construction was the material wood, stone, and earth, all blended together in ways that seem simple but were incredibly effective when used properly. Stone, for instance, was often used for the foundations and lower walls of homes. Its natural weight and density helped keep warmth inside and protect it against the wind. But it wasn't just about solidifying the structure, it was about insulation too. The walls were often packed with mud or clay, materials that helped to seal up cracks and create a barrier between the inside and the freezing outside. Of course, the idea of building with the land wasn't new. In fact, this practice has been around for centuries. One of the more fascinating aspects of medieval shelter construction was how farmers utilized the earth itself to their advantage. Many medieval homes were partially dug into the ground. This technique, known as earth sheltering, had its roots in the need for constant warmth. The earth, as you might imagine, is a great insulator. The deeper into the ground you go, the more constant the temperature becomes. Even in the dead of winter, the earth below remained a few degrees warmer than the freezing air above. This adaptation may seem simple in theory, but it was a brilliant move for farmers facing harsh winters. When you're digging into the earth to create a home, you're not just creating a space to live in, you're tapping into a natural resource that can regulate temperature. This underground design meant that a small fire could keep the entire house warm through the coldest months. This isn't to say that there weren't challenges after all. Water could seep in, creating dampness, and ventilation was always an issue in homes that were dug into the earth. But the overall benefits of earth sheltering cannot be denied, and many medieval farmers took advantage of this technique to survive the toughest winters. Then there were the roofs. The roof of a medieval home had to withstand far more than the typical rainstorms it had to endure the weight of snow and ice. The iconic thatched roof, often associated with quaint cottages, was a crucial element in these homes. But the function of thatch wasn't just about aesthetic charm. It was a practical solution for retaining heat and shedding snow. A common misconception about thatched roofs is that they're inherently poor at keeping out the elements. However, when properly maintained, a thatched roof is incredibly effective at both insulating the home and allowing snow to slip off. The process of creating a thatch roof involved layering straw, reed, or other grasses to form thick, dense layers. These layers acted as natural insulators. Moreover, when snow began to fall, it would accumulate on the roof and further insulate the home. Think of it like a second layer of protection. This design, however, was not without its risks. The weight of the snow, when it built up too high, could cause a thatched roof to collapse. The danger of this happening was always present, especially during the heaviest storms. But medieval farmers were resourceful. They learned to maintain their roofs, checking for weaknesses, repairing damaged thatch, and even reinforcing the roof with additional materials to ensure it could hold up under the pressure. Another feature of these medieval shelters was the placement of the hearth. While it seems like a simple element in today's world, the hearth was, in fact, the lifeblood of the home. In medieval times, a fire was more than just a source of light. It was a source of heat, a place to cook, and often the only source of warmth during the bitterly cold months. The hearth was typically positioned at the heart of the home, with a chimney or flue allowing smoke to escape, but not too much of the heat. There's something poetic about how medieval farmers understood the importance of the hearth. It wasn't just the fire itself, it was the ritual of keeping the fire alive, stoking it, maintaining it, and using it to keep the entire household warm. In many ways, the hearth embodied the resilience of the farmer. It was a constant source of comfort and survival. At the same time, the shelter wasn't just built to protect from the cold. It was designed to protect against the elements more broadly, especially in the aftermath of a storm. After all, the snow that fell in a blizzard wasn't just a gentle dusting, it was thick and heavy, capable of blocking roads, piling up against walls, and creating havoc within the home. This is where the idea of windbreaks came into play. A windbreak, often a simple wall or set of trees surrounding the shelter, acted as a barrier, preventing the wind from gaining access to the shelter's fragile walls. Windbreaks were critical in maintaining warmth because the wind could easily carry away any heat that had been built up in the shelter. Farmers also had to be resourceful when it came to their animals. In medieval times, livestock was as important for warmth as it was for food and labor. Farmers often housed their animals within the same shelter or close by. The warmth of the animals helped maintain a more constant temperature, providing vital heat during the coldest nights. At the same time, sharing space with livestock came with its challenges such as the smell and the constant need for maintenance. But it was a necessary compromise in the battle against the cold. Now, as you sit near the hearth, hearing the winds howl and the snow continuing to pile up outside, you start to understand the level of ingenuity that went into surviving the medieval winter. Every element of the shelter, the roof, the hearth, the walls, even the earth was carefully considered, designed not just for comfort but for survival. Each part of the home worked in concert with the others, a testament to the farmer's resilience and understanding of the natural world. And as the storm rages on, you realize that while your shelter may not be perfect, it is enough. It has the strength to withstand the worst of what nature can throw at it. For tonight, at least, you are safe. The storm outside intensifies, and the howling wind seems to infiltrate even the strongest of walls. You can feel the cold creeping in through the tiniest of gaps in the timber or mud, yet, miraculously, the inside of your shelter remains bearable, warm even. The fire crackles cheerfully in the hearth, its flames casting long shadows across the room. You pull your cloak tighter around you, grateful for the shelter you've built and for the warmth it provides in a world that, tonight, feels far too cold and unpredictable. As you settle in, you might find yourself reflecting on the sheer complexity of building a shelter in the medieval world. The homes, while seemingly humble by today's standards, were designed with an incredible amount of thought and ingenuity. They had to be not just functional, but resilient enough to withstand not only the intense cold of winter, but also the unpredictable storms that could arrive at any moment. The roof, the hearth, the walls, all had to come together in a delicate balance of materials and design, each element working together to create a space that could survive the harshest weather conditions. Now, as the storm continues to rage, you begin to realize how the farmers of the medieval era had mastered the art of living with nature, using its elements to their advantage. For them, the land was both their ally and their adversary. The winds and snow, while dangerous, could be kept at bay with the right shelter, constructed from the materials found in the immediate environment. Every choice, from the timber used in the walls to the earth dug into the floor, was made with survival in mind. These weren't just homes, they were fortresses built from the land itself. Let's take a moment to consider the thatched roof, a hallmark of medieval homes. In the world of medieval shelter construction, thatch wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was a critical part of the design that served a very practical function. Thatch was lightweight, abundant, and easy to replace, qualities that made it ideal for roofing. But its real strength lay in how it performed under the conditions of winter. The dense layers of straw or reed that formed the roof helped to trap heat inside, while offering a surprising level of insulation. Snow would collect on top of the thatch, further adding to its ability to insulate, creating a thick layer that acted as an additional barrier to the cold. However, while the thatched roof was an excellent insulator, it was also a double-edged sword. The weight of snow and ice that accumulated on top of the roof could, if left unchecked, cause it to collapse. The risk of roof failure was a very real threat during a particularly heavy blizzard, but it was a danger that medieval farmers learned to manage over time. They would regularly inspect their roofs, clearing them of excess snow to prevent the buildup of dangerous weight. If a roof was showing signs of damage, they would replace the thatch or add reinforcements to ensure its structural integrity. But the roof was just one piece of the puzzle. What about the walls, those silent sentinels that shielded you from the elements? The construction of these walls was equally crucial. In many medieval homes, walls were made from a combination of wattle and daub, a technique that involved weaving branches or twigs together to form a lattice, which was then covered with a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung. This method was surprisingly effective at keeping out the cold, as the thick layer of daub acted as insulation. The walls, while not impervious to the cold, provided a barrier against the wind, helping to trap the warmth generated by the fire in the hearth. As you sit in your shelter, it's easy to imagine how vital these walls were during the winter months. The wind could cut through even the sturdiest of stone walls, but the wattle and daub technique helped to minimize drafts, keeping the heat inside where it was most needed. These homes, though simple in construction, were designed with an understanding of the elements that was far ahead of their time. The farmers knew that every part of the shelter had to contribute to survival, from the materials used to the positioning of the hearth. And, perhaps most importantly, they understood that every choice they made was about creating a space where they could endure the worst of winter and emerge not just alive, but with their livelihoods intact. Now, imagine the sound of the wind howling outside, rattling the wooden beams of your shelter. But inside, there's a certain calm. The fire crackles in the hearth, and the warmth that fills the room is almost tangible, offering a kind of comfort that is rare in the medieval world. This warmth doesn't come without effort, though. It takes constant attention, stoking the fire, making sure the wood is plentiful, and ensuring that the hearth continues to provide enough heat to maintain a tolerable temperature inside. The task is never-ending, but it's one that keeps you alive during these cold, dark months. And of course, there's the matter of your animals. In medieval times, animals were not just a source of food or labor, they were essential to survival, especially during the winter. The warmth provided by the animals' bodies helped to maintain the temperature in the shelter, especially at night, when the cold would settle in and the wind would begin to howl again. The close quarters between the family and the animals were not always pleasant, but they were necessary. The body heat of the livestock was just one more factor that kept the shelter from becoming a freezing tomb. In the midst of the storm, the thought of those animals sharing the shelter with you brings a sense of solidarity. Despite the cold, despite the wind, you are not alone. Together, with your animals, your family, and the shelter you've built, you have found a way to survive. The storm outside may be fierce, but the shelter you've crafted through ingenuity, careful planning, and an understanding of the natural world will see you through the night. As the storm begins to wane, the sound of the wind slowly dies down. The snow continues to fall in gentle flakes, but the worst of it is over. You sit back in your chair, the warmth from the fire still enveloping you, and feel a quiet sense of gratitude. The shelter you've built has held firm against the storm. Your family and livestock are safe. The winter may still have months to go, but for now, you are secure. You can rest easy knowing that, through your efforts, you've created a sanctuary that can withstand even the most fearsome blizzards. The snow outside begins to settle into a soft blanket, the wind's fury now just a distant memory. But even as the storm fades, the world beyond your shelter remains shrouded in cold and silence. The quiet is almost suffocating, yet comforting in its own way. Inside, the crackling of the fire offers the only sound, the gentle warmth spreading slowly across the room. You pull your woolen blanket tighter around your shoulders, feeling the weight of the day's exhaustion wash over you. It's the kind of night where you can rest, knowing that your shelter is secure, and that, for now, the world outside is kept at bay. Medieval life was an endless cycle of survival, and winter was perhaps the most demanding part of that cycle. As a farmer, your success during the colder months depended on a mixture of preparation, adaptability, and resilience. It wasn't enough to simply have a roof over your head. That roof had to be built in such a way that it could withstand the weight of snow, the pressure of the wind, and the biting cold that could freeze the very bones of a person. Survival wasn't guaranteed, even with the best shelter. It was a constant battle against nature. In your shelter tonight, you're reminded of the ways medieval farmers found clever solutions to the challenges they faced. You're surrounded by simple materials: wood, earth, stone, and thatch, but together, they form a home that has provided protection and warmth in the harshest of storms. The walls may be constructed from wattle and daub, the roof may be thatched, and the hearth may be simple, but each element works in harmony to create a space that offers warmth and safety. And while these shelters weren't luxurious by any stretch of the imagination, they were enough to keep families alive through the long winter months. A fascinating thing about these homes was the way they were built to last, despite the relatively basic materials used in construction. The walls, made of wattle and daub, were not just a way to fill in the gaps between the wooden beams. They were an active part of the shelter's ability to stay warm. Wattle and daub, a technique used for centuries, involved weaving branches or twigs together to form a lattice, then covering that lattice with a mixture of mud, straw, and sometimes animal dung. This may sound rudimentary, but the resulting walls were surprisingly sturdy and efficient at keeping the cold out. The use of mud and clay to seal the walls was crucial for insulation. When applied correctly, it created a thick, airtight seal that trapped heat inside the shelter, preventing the warmth from escaping. The walls weren't just protecting you from the cold, they were holding in the warmth, generated by the hearth, the animals, and the body heat of those who lived there. This was a perfect example of how medieval farmers worked with what they had, adapting their materials to suit the climate and the conditions around them. And then there was the question of the floors. Medieval farmers didn't have carpets or rugs to soften the hard ground beneath their feet. In fact, the floors were often nothing more than dirt, covered in straw or rushes to make walking more comfortable. While this might sound uncomfortable, the earth beneath the floor acted as another layer of insulation, helping to trap the warmth in the home and keeping the cold from creeping up from the ground. Despite these ingenious adaptations, medieval homes weren't perfect, and they certainly weren't immune to the dangers of winter. Snow, for instance, could accumulate in dangerous amounts, and the weight of it could cause roofs to collapse if not properly maintained. Farmers had to stay vigilant, regularly clearing snow from the roof to prevent the weight from becoming overwhelming. In fact, there's something quite poetic about how these farmers learned to coexist with the elements, constantly adjusting their methods and maintaining their homes with a level of care and attention that kept them alive. In addition to the physical construction of the shelter, there was also a mental and emotional aspect to survival. The long winter nights could be isolating, especially when the storm raged outside, and the days felt interminably short. In these dark times, families often relied on each other for both physical warmth and emotional support. The hearth, with its warmth and glow, became more than just a place to cook or gather. It was a place where stories were told, games were played, and bonds were strengthened. The firelight danced on the walls, casting flickering shadows that made the darkness seem less oppressive. It was also during these long winter months that the importance of community became even more apparent. In medieval villages, neighbors often helped each other prepare for the cold. If one family's shelter wasn't holding up, the community would rally together to help reinforce it. They would share firewood, food, and warmth, knowing that in the end, survival depended on working together. Even though each family had their own shelter, there was a sense of collective responsibility that tied everyone together during the hardest months of the year. At the same time, there was an underlying tension that came with the constant threat of the elements. Despite the warmth of the hearth, despite the effort to keep the home intact, there was always the nagging fear that something might go wrong. Perhaps the thatched roof would collapse under the weight of snow, or the firewood would run out before spring arrived. The unpredictability of winter meant that survival was never guaranteed. You could prepare as much as possible, but in the end, you were always at the mercy of the weather. The storm could return, and with it, a new set of challenges to face. But for now, at this moment, as you sit in your shelter, the storm is over. The wind has calmed, and the snow falls in soft, gentle flakes. You are safe, warm, and surrounded by the comfort of your family and your animals. The fire continues to crackle in the hearth, and the air is filled with the scent of wood smoke. The walls that once seemed so fragile now feel sturdy and secure. The shelter you've built, with its thatched roof and mud-coated walls, has stood strong against the worst of the winter's fury. And tonight, at least, you can rest easy, knowing that you've done everything you can to survive. Outside, the storm has passed, but the world remains silent and still. The once howling winds now seem to have swallowed themselves, leaving only a thick, muffled quiet. The landscape is blanketed in white, the only traces of life, the soft tracks of animals that have ventured out to forage. Inside your shelter, the fire continues to crackle, its warm glow pushing back the darkness and cold that linger outside. The space around you feels safe, almost sacred, and for a moment, the outside world seems like something distant, something that can't touch you within these walls. But as you sit there, the realization hits. Surviving winter in medieval times wasn't just about staying warm, it was about maintaining a delicate balance between the environment and your shelter. Everything inside your home, from the layout to the materials used, was designed to cope with the unpredictable challenges the winter months brought. The medieval farmer didn't have the luxury of modern technology, so they had to rely on skill, ingenuity, and constant vigilance to stay alive. Let's take a moment to explore how the structure of the home itself played a crucial role in making this balance possible. The placement of walls, windows, and doors, the materials used to construct the roof, and even the positioning of the hearth were all decisions made with survival in mind. Medieval farmers had to consider every aspect of the shelter's construction to ensure it could withstand the worst that winter had to offer. The walls, for instance, were often made from a combination of wattle and daub. This technique involved weaving branches together to create a lattice framework, which was then covered with a mixture of mud, clay, and straw. The beauty of this construction method lay in its simplicity. Not only was it an effective way to keep the cold at bay, but it also allowed the home to breathe, minimizing the buildup of moisture that could lead to rot. The walls provided both insulation and ventilation, a critical feature when you consider that medieval homes lacked the modern conveniences we take for granted today, like double-glazed windows or airtight doors. The insulation provided by the walls was vital. Medieval farmers lived in homes that were small by today's standards, often 1 or 2 rooms at most. These compact spaces meant that every inch of warmth had to be carefully conserved. The thatched roof, while vulnerable to snow accumulation, was also a brilliant way to trap heat. The snow itself acted as a kind of extra insulation, helping to keep the interior temperature from plummeting too rapidly. The thick layer of straw, reeds, or grasses that formed the roof allowed snow to accumulate on top, creating a thick, insulating barrier. The natural properties of thatch made it an ideal material for retaining heat, and with regular maintenance it could last for many years. But the roof wasn't without its risks. The weight of snow could be a silent killer, gradually accumulating until the roof could no longer bear the pressure. While the thatched roof was efficient, it required constant attention. Farmers would clear the snow from their roofs after every storm, ensuring that the weight didn't reach dangerous levels. This maintenance, though necessary, was an ongoing task, one that took time and effort. It's a reminder of how even the simplest solutions in medieval life came with their own set of challenges. Inside the shelter, the hearth played a central role. Its importance cannot be overstated. The hearth wasn't just a place to cook food or boil water. It was the heart of the home. It was where heat was generated, where the family gathered, and where the daily rhythm of life unfolded. But it was also a constant reminder of how precarious survival could be. Without a steady supply of firewood, without the constant care of the hearth, the warmth it provided could quickly disappear. Gathering firewood was an essential task, often started in the fall, long before the first snowflakes of winter had even begun to fall. The act of cutting, stacking, and storing firewood was as vital to survival as the construction of the shelter itself. The fire itself also had a more practical function beyond warmth. It provided light during the long winter nights. The days were short, and the nights long and unyielding. Inside the shelter, the flickering light of the fire helped to push back the darkness, creating a sense of comfort and security. The sound of the crackling flames, combined with the warmth it provided, became a steady presence in the home. It was the one constant in an otherwise unpredictable world. And then there were the animals. In the medieval world, livestock wasn't just a source of food or labor, it was essential to survival. The warmth provided by animals, cattle, sheep, and pigs helped to maintain a more stable temperature inside the shelter. In many medieval homes, the animals were kept in the same structure as the humans. This shared space allowed the heat generated by the animals to add to the warmth of the home. Of course, sharing living quarters with livestock wasn't without its drawbacks. The smell, the constant need for cleaning, and the challenges of keeping the animals healthy during the harsh winter months were all part of the equation. But for the medieval farmer, these were necessary compromises in the struggle to survive. The presence of animals in the home also added another layer of protection. Farmers knew that the body heat of their animals was essential during the coldest nights. In times of extreme cold, this was a simple yet effective solution to preventing frostbite or hypothermia. The animals provided warmth, and in turn, the family provided food and care. It was a symbiotic relationship that helped ensure survival. As the wind outside begins to calm further, the temperature inside your shelter remains steady. You sit back, reflecting on how, despite all the challenges and risks that winter brings, the shelter you've built or perhaps inherited has served its purpose. It has kept you warm, safe, and sheltered from the storm. It is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of medieval farmers who, with little more than what the land provided, managed to survive some of the harshest conditions imaginable. But this winter, like all winters, will eventually give way to spring. The snow will melt, the days will grow longer, and the warmth of the sun will return. The cycle of life will continue, and the work of the farmer will shift from survival to preparation for the next season. But for now, tonight, you rest easy. The shelter holds firm against the cold, and you are safe. Tomorrow will come, with its own set of challenges, but for tonight, the storm has passed. The world outside is still, save for the occasional rustle of snow shifting on the wind. The silence is almost peaceful, though it feels strange, as if nature itself is holding its breath after the fury of the storm. Inside the shelter, you are cocooned in warmth and quiet, the flickering fire casting soft shadows on the walls. The rhythmic crackle of the flames provides a steady soundtrack to your thoughts as you settle deeper into your space. finding comfort in the quiet hum of life that still pulses within these walls. Here, in this modest refuge, you begin to understand just how deeply the medieval farmers' connection to their shelters was rooted in not only survival but also the human need for security and rest. In the middle of this calm, you might find yourself considering the real genius behind these medieval structures. The ingenuity involved in constructing a home that could endure not just snowstorms, but also the constant challenges of medieval life was nothing short of remarkable. It wasn't just the materials that made these homes effective, though that was a large part of it. It was the understanding that survival came down to more than just a roof over your head. It was about constructing a space that worked in harmony with the environment, one that could protect against the elements while providing the basic necessities of warmth, food, and comfort. Building a shelter in medieval times meant thinking through every aspect of the structure, from the foundation to the roof. The medieval farmer, no stranger to hard work and resourcefulness, knew that every detail had to be accounted for. You might have used local timber for the frame, a sturdy choice that could withstand the pressure of snow and the occasional storm. But the walls, often constructed from wattle and daub, were perhaps the most interesting feature in terms of their ability to regulate temperature. The technique of weaving twigs or branches together to form a lattice was, in itself, ingenious. This base was then covered with a mixture of clay, straw, and sometimes animal dung. While it might seem rudimentary, the resulting material offered excellent insulation, keeping the warmth inside while shielding the inhabitants from the wind. Unlike the smooth, solid walls of modern homes, the texture of wattle and daub was rough and porous, but this allowed the structure to breathe, preventing moisture from accumulating inside the shelter. In a world without modern ventilation, moisture control was essential to maintaining both the structural integrity of the home and the health of its inhabitants. While the walls offered protection from the cold, the roof was just as vital. It wasn't enough to simply throw some thatch over the frame of the house. The roof had to be built with a special awareness of the weight of snow. The thatch, with its overlapping layers of straw or reed, naturally allowed for snow to accumulate on top, which then provided a second layer of insulation. This snow, packed tightly on the roof, trapped heat inside, creating a buffer against the cold air that would otherwise seep through the walls and the roof. Yet even with its insulating benefits, the thatched roof had its drawbacks. The snow that accumulated, while providing extra warmth, also put stress on the structure. The medieval farmer had to stay vigilant, often clearing the snow off the roof after every storm to prevent the weight from becoming too much. This was one of the constant maintenance tasks that marked the winter months. While the roof's design was incredibly effective in terms of insulating, the risk of collapse remained a constant fear. But the process of maintaining the roof was a reflection of the farmer's deep understanding of the land and the necessity of working in partnership with it rather than against it. Inside, the hearth remained the heart of the home. The fire was the only real source of warmth and light, and without it, the entire shelter would have been nothing more than a cold, drafty structure. Keeping the fire going wasn't just about comfort, it was about survival. Farmers would spend hours gathering and cutting firewood in the fall, stacking it carefully to ensure there would be enough to last throughout the long winter. The hearth also served as a space for food preparation, and the cooking of meals around the fire brought the family together. The importance of the hearth went beyond mere functionality, though. It was also a place for social gathering, for passing the long winter nights in each other's company. The stories, the conversations, the games played by the light of the fire, all of these elements made the hearth more than just a practical necessity. It became a place where the family could bond, share warmth, and find comfort even when the world outside was cold and unforgiving. The role of animals in the shelter can't be overlooked either. Medieval farmers understood the value of livestock, not just for food or labor, but also for warmth. Animals, particularly large ones like cattle and sheep, generated body heat that helped to maintain the internal temperature of the shelter. Keeping animals close during the winter months wasn't just a matter of practicality, it was also a form of mutual reliance. The animals needed shelter from the storm, and the farmers needed their warmth to survive the long, cold nights. It was an interdependent relationship that sustained both human and animal through the darkest months of the year. As the storm outside continues to fade, the peace inside the shelter offers a kind of solace. The weight of the winter storm is behind you, and the home you've built, or perhaps inherited, has seen you through. It's a testament to the farmer's resilience and adaptability that such simple materials, wood, thatch, mud, can create a refuge that not only protects but also nurtures life. While it may have been difficult to imagine a home of warmth and comfort in the dead of winter, the medieval shelter was a complex system designed with survival in mind. Every piece of the structure, from the walls to the roof to the hearth, was meant to keep the cold at bay and provide for the essential needs of the family. These homes, while humble, were the result of centuries of trial, error, and learning from the land itself. In the end, survival was about more than just building a house. It was about understanding the rhythms of nature, anticipating its dangers, and working with the land to create a space that could endure. As you sit by the fire tonight, the shelter is more than just a building. It's a living testament to the strength and resilience of those who lived in it, and to the unspoken partnership between the farmer and the land they relied on. As the evening stretches on, the warmth from the hearth wraps around you like a comforting embrace. The flickering flames seem to dance in rhythm with the stillness outside, casting a soft, golden glow against the walls of your shelter. The snow that fell so relentlessly has finally quieted, leaving behind an untouched landscape of winter's beauty. Inside your home, though, it's as though time slows, the crackling of the fire becoming the only sound that fills the air. It's a peaceful moment, one that allows you to reflect on the home that has kept you safe, warm, and alive through the worst of the storm. The medieval home, with all its imperfections, was a delicate balance of design, practicality, and resilience. Each component of the shelter, the roof, the walls, the hearth, was not simply built for aesthetic purposes but with survival in mind. To the medieval farmer, every aspect of the shelter was a tool for combating nature's harshest conditions. The design of the home was deeply entwined with the farmer's intimate knowledge of the land, the weather, and the seasons. The home wasn't just a place to live, it was a space built to endure, to protect, and to nurture life through the cycles of nature. The importance of the roof cannot be overstated. Thatch, the preferred roofing material for medieval farmers, was both practical and ingenious. Its ability to trap heat, combined with the snow's insulating properties, made it an excellent choice for keeping the shelter warm during the bitter cold months. But like any solution, it came with its own set of challenges. The weight of snow and ice, though beneficial for insulation, could quickly turn into a danger if left unchecked. The medieval farmer had to remain vigilant, clearing the roof after each snowstorm to prevent the buildup of too much weight. If left unaddressed, a collapsing roof could be a disaster, and this constant task was a reminder of how survival in the medieval world was an ongoing battle with the elements. Still, the challenges that came with maintaining the roof were no match for the ingenuity of the farmer. The combination of thatch and snow, while it required constant upkeep, ultimately created an efficient and relatively simple solution to the problem of insulation. Over time, farmers learned how to repair and reinforce their roofs, making adjustments as the seasons changed and the weather grew more unpredictable. In fact, this adaptability, the ability to learn from the land and adjust one's methods accordingly, was a hallmark of medieval life. There was no one-size-fits-all approach to survival. Each farmer, each family, had to find their own balance, based on the materials at hand and the particular challenges of their environment. Moving from the roof to the walls, the construction of medieval shelters also reflects the resourcefulness and adaptability of the time. Wattle and daub, the method used for constructing the walls, was a perfect example of the farmer's ability to work with what nature provided. The weaved branches, combined with a mixture of mud, clay, and straw, created walls that were surprisingly durable, providing insulation from both the cold and the wind. The porous nature of the material allowed the walls to breathe, helping to prevent the buildup of moisture, which could lead to rot or mold. In the absence of modern insulation, wattle and daub was a clever, effective solution that contributed significantly to the overall warmth and comfort of the shelter. The walls, though rudimentary by today's standards, were an essential part of the home's overall defense against the cold. They worked in tandem with the roof and the hearth to trap heat, allowing the shelter to maintain a relatively constant temperature. As the wind howled outside, the walls held firm, providing a buffer against the relentless chill. It's hard to imagine now, with our central heating and modern insulation, but for medieval farmers, every inch of their shelter had to work toward preserving warmth. These walls, though rough and imperfect, were a critical part of that effort. Inside the shelter, the hearth served as the heart of the home. It was the source of heat, light, and comfort, the one constant in a world that was constantly shifting between light and dark, warmth and cold. The hearth was the focal point of family life, where meals were prepared, where stories were shared, and where the warmth of the fire kept the chill at bay. Without the hearth, survival would have been nearly impossible. It was the hearth that allowed families to endure the long winter nights, providing not just physical warmth, but emotional comfort as well. Imagine, for a moment, the fire crackling and popping as the heat radiates outward. The flames flicker, casting shadows on the walls. The scent of burning wood fills the air, and you can feel the warmth gradually spreading through the room, thawing out the cold that had crept in earlier. The hearth is alive, a presence that turns a cold, dark night into something bearable, even cozy. And yet, without the constant work to maintain it, without the firewood gathered in advance, the careful tending of the flames, and the careful attention to the hearth's upkeep, this warmth would be fleeting. It's an ongoing cycle of care and effort, just as it is with the roof and the walls. Each part of the shelter must be maintained and protected if it's to continue providing for the family. Now, as you sit near the hearth, the warmth from the fire sinking into your skin, you realize just how important these small details were to medieval survival. The shelter, as a whole, was more than just a place to live. It was a refuge, a sanctuary built with intention and care, designed to weather the storms of winter and provide comfort in the harshest conditions. The thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, the hearth, it all came together to form a home that could withstand the unpredictable nature of medieval life. As you listen to the gentle crackle of the fire and feel the warmth spread through the shelter, you understand the significance of the work that went into creating a place like this. The medieval farmer didn't just build a shelter, they created a home, one that reflected their deep understanding of the land and its rhythms. In this small, humble space, the balance between nature and human ingenuity is realized, providing a sense of safety and peace even in the most difficult of times. Tonight, as the storm outside fades away, you rest easy in the warmth and comfort of the home you've helped create. You may not have control over the weather, but within these walls, you have created a space that can stand firm against whatever nature throws your way. And for now, that is enough. The snow outside, now a blanket of pristine white, catches the pale light of the moon. The storm has passed, leaving in its wake a serene stillness, broken only by the occasional shift of snow settling on the roof. Inside, your shelter feels like a world apart from the frigid landscape beyond. The hearth, still warm, provides a comforting presence in the heart of the room. The fire crackles softly, sending occasional bursts of warmth into the air. You draw the blanket closer around your shoulders, grateful for the security that your home provides a refuge from the unforgiving cold. You might find yourself reflecting on the journey of the medieval farmer. The life they led was one of constant struggle, one where survival depended on a balance of resources, knowledge, and a deep understanding of the land. Each winter, each storm, was a test of not only their physical endurance, but their ability to adapt, learn, and innovate. The shelter, in its simplest form, was a testament to their ingenuity and resilience. The construction of the medieval home was as much about survival as it was about understanding the natural world. The materials used, the stone, the wood, the mud, were carefully chosen not only for their availability, but for their properties in withstanding the harshest weather. The choice of thatch for the roof, for example, was more than just an aesthetic one. Thatch had been used for centuries because of its ability to insulate and protect against the cold. The layers of straw and reed, when applied properly, could trap heat inside the shelter, making it an effective shield against the bitter winds and snow. But thatch was not without its drawbacks. The accumulation of snow on the roof could create a dangerous weight, and over time, the material would need to be maintained and replaced. Yet, even with these challenges, thatch remained the preferred material for roofs across medieval Europe, and its durability, when cared for properly, was remarkable. Another aspect of the home that demanded constant attention was the hearth. The fire was the lifeblood of the medieval home, a source of warmth, light, and heat. It was also the place where meals were prepared, where water was boiled, and where the family gathered to share stories and comfort one another during the long, cold nights. The hearth was more than just a functional element of the home, it was the central point of life, the one feature that kept the darkness and cold at bay. Without it, a medieval home would be little more than a shelter, a cold structure offering no solace from the elements. The fire, though essential, required constant vigilance. Gathering wood, chopping it, and storing it carefully for the winter months was a task that required foresight and preparation. A shortage of firewood could spell disaster, and once the firewood was gone, so was the warmth. In this sense, the hearth was a reflection of the farmer's understanding of the seasons. It wasn't enough to simply build a shelter for the winter months, you had to prepare for them long before the first snowfall. And then, of course, there was the question of the walls. The medieval shelter was often built with walls made of wattle and daub, a method that combined the flexibility of wood with the insulating properties of mud and clay. This combination helped to keep the warmth inside and the cold outside. But the walls, like the roof, required maintenance. The daub had to be reapplied regularly to ensure that it remained intact and provided the necessary insulation. A crack in the wall could lead to a draft, and a draft could mean the difference between surviving the winter and succumbing to its bitter cold. Inside the shelter, the warmth was not just provided by the fire. The body heat of the family and the livestock, who were often housed in the same space, contributed to the overall temperature. The animals, in turn, relied on the shelter for protection from the elements, just as the humans did. This shared warmth, this mutual reliance, was a key component of winter survival. The animals provided heat during the coldest nights, and in return, the farmer provided food and shelter. This interdependence between human and animal was essential during the harsh winters when survival was not guaranteed. As you sit near the hearth, the crackling of the fire is a reminder of the work it took to ensure that this warmth would continue through the night. The wind outside may be howling, but within these walls you are safe. The shelter, with all its careful construction and ongoing maintenance, has proven its worth once again. It has kept you warm and protected through the storm, just as it has done countless times before. And yet, as the fire flickers and the warmth continues to spread through the room, you know that the work is never truly done. The shelter must be maintained, the firewood must be replenished, and the animals must be cared for. Survival is a never-ending cycle, but one that is made a little easier by the comfort of a well-built home. Looking around, you notice the walls of your shelter, the thatch above, and the hearth glowing warmly. Each part of this home tells a story of the work, the effort, and the ingenuity that went into making it not just a place to live, but a place to survive. Every crack in the wall, every layer of thatch, every log in the fire is a reminder of the care that went into making this home a refuge from the cold. You begin to appreciate the quiet strength of this shelter, knowing that it has stood the test of time and weathered the storm. Now, as the fire begins to burn lower, casting long shadows across the room, You feel a sense of peace settle in. The storm is over. The world outside may still be cold, but within these walls there is warmth, comfort, and safety. You can rest easy tonight, knowing that the shelter you've created or inherited has served its purpose once again. It has protected you from the worst of winter's fury, and you are safe within its walls. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the continuing work of survival. But for now, tonight, you can rest easy. The fire will burn through the night, and the shelter will stand strong. Tomorrow, you'll face whatever challenges the world brings. But for now, you are safe. The storm is over. As you sink deeper into your cloak, the warmth from the hearth begins to lull you into a comfortable stillness. The fire, now just a bed of glowing embers, continues to crackle softly, its warmth still radiating across the room. The wind outside is nothing more than a faint whisper now, a reminder of the storm that raged just hours ago. But here, in this shelter, there is nothing but peace and quiet. The world beyond the walls may be cold and desolate, but inside, you are surrounded by the things that matter most: warmth, safety, and the companionship of those you hold dear. This sense of security is no small thing. The medieval farmer's life was one of constant labor and struggle, but within the walls of a well-built shelter, there was a temporary reprieve from the elements. The work never stopped. There were always tasks to complete, repairs to be made, and new challenges to face. Yet, when the storm had passed and the fire was crackling in the hearth, there was a moment of rest, a moment to appreciate the shelter that had been built with such care and foresight. It wasn't just a roof over your head, it was a fortress, a symbol of the farmer's resilience and ingenuity in the face of nature's fiercest storms. For medieval farmers, the shelter was a sanctuary, yes, but it was also a tool. It was a means of survival, crafted with an intimate understanding of the land and the seasons. The construction of the home was a delicate balance, where every material had a purpose and every design choice was made with function in mind. Thatch for insulation, mud and clay for walls that could breathe, and wood for sturdy foundations. These simple materials, when used correctly, formed a home that could endure the harshest winters. And in the depths of winter, when the days were short and the nights long, this shelter became the center of life. It wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a place to work, to eat, and to bond. You think about the animals that share the space with you: cattle, sheep, pigs, perhaps? Their presence is essential to your survival. Not only do they provide food and labor, but their body heat contributes to the warmth of the shelter. This shared space, where human and animal cohabitate in close quarters, was an essential aspect of medieval farming life. The warmth of the livestock, gathered together in a corner of the shelter, helped to maintain a more stable temperature, especially at night when the temperature outside would plummet. The animals depended on the shelter as much as you did, and together, you formed a mutual support system that allowed everyone to survive. The importance of the fire cannot be overstated either. It was the hearth that transformed a cold, bleak shelter into a warm, inviting home. The fire was the lifeblood of the medieval home. Without it, there would be no warmth, no light, and no comfort. But maintaining the fire was no small task. Firewood had to be gathered, stored, and kept dry. The hearth had to be cleaned, the fire kept burning through the long winter nights. In many ways, the care and attention given to the hearth were a reflection of the farmer's commitment to surviving the cold. The fire was both a practical necessity and a symbol of the farmer's connection to the land, working with the natural elements to create something that could withstand the seasons. Now, as you sit in the comfort of your shelter, the warmth from the fire still permeating the room, you reflect on the care that went into creating this space. Every detail of the shelter, from the wattle and daub walls to the thatched roof, was a product of generations of knowledge passed down through the ages. The medieval farmer knew how to use the materials available to them to build something that could protect them from the elements. They understood that survival wasn't just about building a house, it was about building a home that could endure, a sanctuary that could withstand the harshest storms. The idea of shelter in medieval times was deeply intertwined with the rhythm of nature. The farmer didn't just work with the seasons, they lived with them. Each season required different tasks, different preparations. In the fall, firewood was gathered, crops were harvested, and the shelter was inspected and reinforced. In the winter, the shelter became a sanctuary from the cold, a place to huddle together and endure the long nights. And in the spring, the cycle began again, as the land thawed and new life began to grow. As you sit by the fire tonight, you are reminded of the delicate balance between the human and natural worlds. The shelter you now occupy, though simple in construction, is a testament to the resilience of those who came before you. It wasn't built in a day. It was the result of years of trial and error, of learning from the land, and of adapting to the ever-changing seasons. The materials may have been basic wood, straw, mud, stone, but the wisdom behind their use was anything but. Medieval farmers built homes that could survive the worst that nature could throw at them. They built homes that could endure, homes that could keep them safe. And tonight, as you sit in your shelter, you realize just how much has been invested in this space. The work, the attention to detail, and the understanding of the land have all come together to create a place that can protect you from the cold and the storm. The fire continues to burn, casting a gentle light that dances on the walls, and you feel a quiet sense of gratitude. The storm outside is nothing more than a memory now, and as the firelight flickers, you understand that, for tonight at least, the world is at peace. You are safe. Tomorrow, there will be more work to do, more tasks to complete, more challenges to face, but for now, you can rest. The shelter stands strong against the storm, and inside, the warmth of the hearth and the companionship of those you love will carry you through the long night. The quiet of the night stretches out before you, the fire's glow softening as the embers begin to fade, their warmth still lingering in the air. The storm, now a distant memory, has left behind a peaceful stillness that blankets the landscape outside. The snow, though thick and heavy, has settled into a quiet coat that reflects the faint light of the moon, giving the world an almost dreamlike quality. Inside your shelter, there's a sense of calm and security. The wind that had once howled with fury is now only a faint whisper against the thick walls. The hearth, though no longer as bright, continues to offer its comforting warmth, a constant reminder that within these walls, you are protected from the elements. As you settle deeper into the warmth of your cloak, the familiar creak of the wooden beams above you adds to the peaceful ambiance. The shelter, sturdy and reliable, has proven itself once again. The walls, thick with layers of wattle and daub, the roof that had withstood the weight of snow, and the hearth that had provided warmth and light, all came together to create a space where survival was possible, even in the harshest conditions. You begin to reflect on how much has been invested into this small yet mighty home. The shelter, in its simplicity, holds the wisdom of generations. The knowledge passed down through centuries, from the materials used in construction to the techniques employed for insulation, was a product of careful observation and adaptation to the land. There's an inherent beauty in how everything fits together. The earth beneath your feet, the sturdy wood of the frame, the comforting thatch above, and the warmth of the hearth. Each piece plays a role, contributing to the whole. And when all these parts come together, they form a space that is more than just a structure. It is a refuge, a safe haven from the unpredictable forces of nature that can so easily turn against you. The way the roof was constructed is a perfect example of the farmer's understanding of nature's balance. Thatch, while vulnerable to the elements, was an excellent insulator when properly maintained. The layers of straw, reed, or grass, tightly packed together, would shed the worst of the snow while still trapping heat inside. Yet, the weight of the snow could be a silent threat. The farmer had to remain vigilant, clearing the snow regularly to prevent the roof from collapsing under its weight. The knowledge of how to maintain the roof, how to reinforce the structure with ropes or extra support, was passed down through the generations, ensuring that the shelter would remain safe no matter how fierce the storm became. Inside, the presence of the hearth is still felt. The fire, though now reduced to glowing embers, continues to radiate heat, its warmth spreading out in quiet waves. It is hard to overstate just how vital the hearth was to survival during these winter months. The fire not only provided warmth but also light, cooking, and a gathering place for the family. It was the heart of the home, the place where life took place, where food was cooked, where conversations were had, and where the community found comfort in each other's presence. The importance of the hearth in the medieval home cannot be overstated. It wasn't simply a source of warmth, it was the center of daily life, and without it, the home would have been cold and barren, a place not fit for survival. But the hearth was also more than just a practical feature. It represented the family's connection to the world outside. The fire, though contained within the shelter, was a reminder of the farmer's relationship with nature. The wood that fueled the fire was gathered from the land, and the fire itself, in a way, was a product of nature's power. It was both a tool and a symbol of the farmer's resourcefulness and resilience. The ability to control fire, to harness its power, was one of the most important aspects of survival. And in the warmth of the hearth, the farmer and their family could find comfort during the long, cold nights, secure in the knowledge that they had the tools they needed to endure. The animals, too, played an essential role in the shelter's function. Their presence was a reminder of the interdependence between humans and the land. The warmth of the livestock helped to maintain a stable temperature inside the shelter. In return, the farmer provided care, food, and shelter to ensure that the animals survived through the winter. This symbiotic relationship where both human and animal worked together to ensure each other's survival was an integral part of medieval farming life. The animals were not simply sources of food or labor, they were vital partners in the struggle to endure the harsh seasons. As you sit in the soft glow of the firelight, the shelter around you feels like more than just walls and roof. It feels like a living, breathing entity. The walls, the roof, the hearth, and the animals all work together to create a space that can withstand the worst of what nature has to offer. Each part of the home serves a purpose, and together, they form a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. Outside, the snow continues to fall gently, the storm having finally moved on, but the cold still lingers in the air. Yet, inside your shelter, you are warm, safe, and secure. The work of the medieval farmer building, maintaining, and living within these homes was a never-ending cycle. The shelter was not just a passive structure. It was an active participant in the survival of the family. It required constant care, attention, and adaptation to the changing seasons and unpredictable weather. But when all of that care and effort came together, the result was a space that could provide not only physical protection but emotional comfort as well. As the fire burns lower, casting long shadows across the room, you feel a quiet sense of gratitude. The shelter you inhabit, though simple, is a testament to the strength and ingenuity of those who came before you. It has seen you through the storm, offering warmth and safety. And now, as the fire flickers one last time, you realize that this small, humble space has not only kept you alive, it has kept you connected to the world around you, to the land, and to the generations of farmers who have lived and worked in this way for centuries. Tomorrow will bring its own set of challenges, but for tonight, you rest easy. The storm is over. The shelter has withstood the test of nature's fury. You are safe, and for now, that is enough. The embers from the fire now glow softly, their heat waning as the night settles into a deeper quiet. Outside, the world is still covered in snow, the landscape transformed into a pristine, untouched world. The storm has passed, but the cold remains, lurking just beyond the warmth of your shelter. However, within these walls, there's a peaceful calm, a sense of security that comes only from the understanding that the shelter you've built is more than just a roof over your head. It is a fortress against the harshest forces of nature. For now, it stands firm, protecting you from the bitter winds, the biting cold, and the darkness that surrounds you. You find yourself reflecting on the simple, yet profound ways in which this shelter has allowed you to survive. Everything about it, from the roof to the hearth to the walls, has been designed with survival in mind. Every part of your home, no matter how humble, has a specific function, all aimed at ensuring warmth, protection, and the means to endure the harsh winter months. The construction of this shelter wasn't a single, isolated event. It was the result of years of learning, adapting, and perfecting. The use of thatch for the roof, the wattle and daub for the walls, the strategic placement of the hearth, all of these elements were born from generations of trial and error, passed down through the ages. The knowledge of how to construct a shelter that could endure harsh winters was not innate, but learned over time, shared from one farmer to the next, like a precious gift that ensured the survival of the community. Now, sitting in the warmth of the hearth, you appreciate just how much effort went into this seemingly simple structure. The thatched roof, with its ability to trap heat, may seem like a simple solution, but it required skill and care to maintain. Snow, while it provided insulation, also posed a threat. The farmer had to clear the roof regularly, making sure that the weight of the snow didn't cause it to collapse. The roof had to be strong, but flexible enough to allow for the accumulation of snow, which added an extra layer of insulation. This delicate balance was essential for keeping the inside of the home warm during the coldest months. The walls, too, required constant care. Wattle and daub, while a sturdy and effective material, were not impervious to the elements. The mixture of mud, clay, and straw used to cover the latticework of branches had to be maintained, reapplied, and repaired regularly to keep the wind and cold out. The idea of using natural materials to create a barrier against the cold was genius in its simplicity. These materials, sourced from the land around you, were an essential part of the home's ability to keep you safe. Without the insulating properties of the walls, the warmth generated by the hearth would have quickly dissipated, leaving the shelter cold and uncomfortable. In many ways, the medieval shelter was a reflection of the farmer's connection to the land. Every decision made in the construction of the home was a direct response to the environment in which the farmer lived. The materials used, the way they were put together, and the constant care required to maintain the shelter were all born from a deep understanding of nature's rhythms. The medieval farmer knew that survival wasn't about conquering the elements, it was about working with them, using the land's resources to create a home that could withstand the worst of the storms. As you sit by the fire tonight, you understand that this shelter, this humble refuge, has allowed you to not only survive the storm but also thrive in a world that is often indifferent to your struggles. It has provided warmth, safety, and a place of rest when the world outside was at its most hostile. You think of the generations of farmers who lived in homes like this, who faced the same challenges, the same fears, and the same struggles. And yet, despite it all, they endured. Their ingenuity, their resourcefulness, and their deep connection to the land allowed them to survive in ways that seem almost miraculous in hindsight. The bond between the medieval farmer and their home was not just one of necessity, but one of mutual respect. The shelter was not just a place to rest, it was a living, breathing entity, one that had been shaped and molded by the hands of those who understood its importance. The roof, the walls, the hearth, they were all parts of a system that allowed the farmer to continue working, to continue living, even when the world outside seemed to conspire against them. Now, as the fire dims to a gentle glow, you feel the exhaustion of the day begin to settle in. The storm is over, and the shelter has proven itself once again. You are warm, safe, and secure. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but for tonight, you can rest easy. The shelter has done its job, and for that, you are grateful. As you close your eyes, the crackling of the embers fades into the background, and the warmth of the fire lingers in your bones. The storm outside, once fierce and threatening, is now a distant memory. Inside you are protected. Inside you are home. The night grows quieter still, the soft whisper of wind outside now the only reminder of the storm that raged hours ago. Inside your shelter, the warmth from the hearth continues to radiate gently, casting long, dancing shadows along the walls. The fire, now reduced to glowing embers, offers a soft, comforting warmth that reaches into the furthest corners of the room. The shelter, though modest, feels like an island of peace in the midst of the cold wilderness that surrounds you. The thick walls of wattle and daub, the thatched roof, and the steady crackle of the fire, these are the elements that make this home not just a refuge, but a fortress against the winter's worst. You sit quietly, the firelight flickering as you reflect on the extraordinary resilience that built this shelter. The materials used in its construction, wood, straw, clay, were all harvested from the land, worked with human hands into a structure that could survive the harshest conditions. Medieval farmers weren't just constructing a place to sleep, they were creating a system designed to combat nature's brutality. Every element of the shelter was crafted with survival in mind, from the insulating properties of the thatched roof to the natural ventilation provided by the wattle and daub walls. The simplicity of these homes, with their natural materials and compact designs, might seem inconspicuous, but they were the result of centuries of knowledge passed down through generations. The farmers' understanding of the land and its seasons, their intimate knowledge of how snow, wind, and rain interacted with their homes, was crucial to ensuring survival. The medieval farmer didn't simply endure the winter, they lived with it, adjusted to its rhythm, and created shelters that worked with the forces of nature, not against them. The thatched roof, for example, was one of the most effective natural insulators available. The layers of straw, reeds, or grasses, when properly layered, trapped heat inside and provided a shield against the wind. It wasn't a perfect solution, of course. Snow could accumulate on the roof, and while it added insulation, it could also put undue stress on the structure. Farmers had to remain vigilant, clearing the snow regularly to prevent the roof from becoming overwhelmed by the weight. Yet, when maintained properly, thatch was one of the most durable roofing materials medieval farmers could use. It was lightweight, abundant, and highly effective at insulating against the cold. Meanwhile, the walls, made from wattle and daub, acted as a second layer of protection. The weave of branches, covered in a mixture of clay and straw, helped keep the cold wind at bay. The mud and clay used for daub also acted as a natural barrier against moisture, preventing the buildup of dampness inside the home. Without this careful construction, the shelter would have been little more than a drafty shack uninhabitable during the long winter months. But with the right materials and maintenance, the shelter was a warm, dry space that allowed the family to endure the coldest nights. In medieval homes, the hearth was the central element, providing both warmth and light. The fire was not only a source of heat but also the heart of daily life. It was around the hearth that families gathered to cook their meals, share stories, and spend time together. In a world where the cold could easily kill, the fire was a lifeline. The warmth it provided made the shelter livable. The light it cast made the nights more bearable, allowing families to continue their routines even when the darkness outside seemed endless. Without the hearth, the home would have been little more than a cold, empty shell. But the hearth, like the roof and walls, required constant care. Gathering firewood, tending the flames, and ensuring that the fire never went out were daily tasks that took time and energy. Firewood had to be chopped, stacked, and stored in preparation for the long winter months. A shortage of firewood could spell disaster, and so the farmer worked tirelessly to ensure that the hearth was always ready to provide warmth. This constant attention to the hearth was a reflection of the farmer's understanding of the elements. The fire wasn't just a luxury, it was a necessity for survival. Tonight, as you sit by the hearth, you can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the shelter around you. It has kept you safe, warm, and secure through the storm. It has allowed you to rest, to find comfort, and to weather the long winter nights. The shelter, though humble, is a masterpiece of adaptation and survival. It is a testament to the resilience of the medieval farmer, who, with nothing more than the materials at hand, was able to create a space that could endure the harshest winters. The animals in the shelter, too, contribute to this sense of security. In medieval homes, it was common for livestock to be housed alongside the family. The body heat of the animals helped to maintain a more stable temperature inside the shelter. Cattle, sheep, and even pigs provided not only food and labor but also warmth, making the shared space even more crucial during the winter months. The animals, in return, depended on the shelter for protection from the cold. This mutual dependence between farmer and animal created a sense of interconnection, where both worked together to ensure each other's survival. The animals were not merely livestock, they were companions in the struggle against the cold. As the fire continues to burn low, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls, you begin to feel the weight of the day's work slip away. The storm outside is over, but its remnants, the snow, the cold still linger. Yet, inside this humble shelter, you are safe. The warmth from the hearth, the protection of the walls, and the company of those around you make this small space feel like a haven. The shelter has done its job. It has kept the storm at bay, allowing you to rest and find peace. The cycle of survival will continue, and tomorrow will bring new challenges. But for tonight, you are safe. The storm is behind you, and inside, all is well. The silence of the night continues to deepen, the storm outside now nothing more than a faint memory. The snow, once fierce and biting, has settled into a soft, still blanket, covering the earth in an even layer of white. The cold air outside, though harsh, no longer feels threatening. Within the warmth of your shelter, there is peace. The fire, now reduced to a gentle glow, casts flickering shadows along the walls, providing the final touch of comfort for the night. As you sit quietly, the sounds of the fire crackling softly in the background, you realize just how crucial this moment of calm is in the grand scheme of things. Life in the medieval world was an endless cycle of survival, where each day brought new challenges, whether it was gathering firewood, maintaining the shelter, or ensuring the survival of the crops and livestock. Yet, tonight, as the storm passes and the warmth of the hearth fills the room, you are reminded of the rewards that come with hard work, care, and ingenuity. The shelter you sit in has been built with a deep understanding of nature and its cycles. Every part of it, from the materials used to the design, was crafted with survival in mind. The thatched roof, which trapped heat and shed snow, was more than just a roof. It was a barrier against the cold, a structure that allowed the shelter to retain warmth even as the outside temperature plummeted. The walls, made of wattle and daub, though not entirely impenetrable, kept the worst of the wind at bay. The hearth, at the very heart of the home, provided not just light and heat but also a place where life unfolded. It was where meals were cooked, stories were told, and families found warmth and comfort in each other's company. It's easy to take for granted the comfort of a well-maintained shelter, but the medieval farmer had to earn that comfort every day. Maintaining the thatch, repairing the walls, gathering firewood, these were constant tasks that required attention and skill. There was no magic solution to the challenges of winter. It was about steady work, year after year, to ensure that the shelter remained strong enough to withstand the forces of nature. The snow, while beautiful in its quiet way, was also a formidable force, capable of collapsing roofs, freezing livestock, and bringing a farmer's life to a halt. The work that went into building a shelter capable of surviving such storms was not just physical labor, it was a mental and emotional commitment to survival. The medieval farmer's relationship with their shelter was one of symbiosis. The shelter was a reflection of the farmer's ability to adapt to the land and its rhythms, and in return, the shelter provided protection from the very elements that made life so difficult. The relationship between the farmer and the shelter was a constant exchange. One required the other to survive. It was this cycle, this interdependence, that allowed farmers to endure the coldest winters and the harshest storms. As the fire slowly burns lower, you feel a sense of satisfaction. The storm has passed, the shelter has done its job, and you are safe. The work of the day has come to an end, and for now there is nothing more to do but rest. Tomorrow will bring new tasks, new challenges, but tonight you can find comfort in the warmth of the hearth, in the security of the shelter, and in the knowledge that you have created a space capable of withstanding nature's fiercest forces. The firelight continues to flicker, casting long, shifting shadows across the room. The wind outside is calm now, and the world is at rest. The shelter, with its thatched roof, wattle and daub walls and central hearth, stands as a testament to the ingenuity of the farmer who built it. It may not be grand or luxurious, but it is strong, it is resilient, and it provides everything needed for survival. The storm is over, the snow continues to fall softly, and inside your shelter, warmth and peace reign. You let your eyes close, the crackling of the fire becoming a lullaby, the comfort of the shelter enveloping you. The night is long, but it is safe, and you are warm. Tomorrow will bring its own set of challenges, but for tonight, you are secure. The shelter stands strong against the cold, and inside, you are home. The quiet of the night stretches on, its peacefulness marked only by the soft glow of the dying fire. Outside, the snow continues to fall gently, its rhythm slow and steady, like nature itself breathing in time. Within the walls of your shelter, there is a stillness too, one that blankets the space in a sense of safety and calm. The storm, once fierce, is now just a distant echo, its fury spent. All that remains is the quiet, the warm air inside, and the gentle hum of a home well built, its foundations strong against the cold. As you sit by the hearth, the final embers casting faint light, you realize that the life of the medieval farmer, though often fraught with labor and challenge, was also one of profound connection to the earth and the seasons. Each winter storm, each cold night, was an opportunity to test the shelter's resilience, to ensure that it could withstand the forces of nature. The work of building and maintaining this shelter, though exhausting, was also deeply rewarding. It was a form of living in harmony with the world around you, a quiet agreement between the farmer and the land. The farmer provided care and labor, and the land responded with sustenance and protection. The structure you now sit in was not simply built in a moment. It was built over time, shaped by the rhythm of the seasons and the knowledge passed down through generations. The thatched roof, though fragile in some respects, was a brilliant solution to the challenges of insulation. The layers of straw and reed had been carefully applied, designed to trap heat inside the shelter, while still allowing the snow to accumulate on top, adding yet another layer of protection against the cold. The roof wasn't just a physical structure, it was a careful negotiation between human ingenuity and nature's demands. In return for the farmer's labor, the roof kept the warmth inside, sheltering the family from the worst of winter's chill. And those walls made of wattle and daub, a mixture of earth, straw and clay, had their own quiet beauty. The walls weren't perfectly smooth or perfectly airtight, but they were sturdy and reliable. Their purpose was clear: to keep the wind out, to provide a buffer against the frost, and to hold the warmth inside. The combination of wood and mud, though simple, created a durable and effective barrier. And the way the walls were built to breathe, allowing moisture to escape while still blocking the cold, showed a deep understanding of how the environment worked. These weren't just walls, they were a reflection of the farmer's knowledge of the land, crafted to ensure that the family inside remained protected from both the cold and the damp. As you sit in the quiet, the scent of burning wood still lingering in the air, you feel a deep appreciation for the shelter that surrounds you. The medieval farmer knew how to build a home that could endure. They knew how to use the earth, the materials at hand, and their own labor to create something that would see them through the hardest winters. The hearth, too, was central to this effort. It wasn't just a source of warmth, it was the heart of the home. It provided light, heat, and a place to gather. Without the hearth, the shelter would have been little more than a cold, empty space. But with it, the home became a place of life and warmth. The animals, too, played an essential role. They weren't just sources of food or labor, they were partners in survival. The warmth they provided helped to keep the shelter warm during the coldest nights. Their bodies, though not always easy to care for, added an extra layer of heat, making the space more bearable during the darkest hours. In return, the farmer provided them with shelter and care, ensuring they had food and protection from the elements. The interdependence between humans and animals in medieval life was a vital aspect of survival. Tonight, as the fire's glow fades and the room is filled with a soft, quiet darkness, you reflect on the work that went into creating this place, a place that has protected you from the storm and kept you warm through the night. The shelter isn't just a physical structure, it is a living testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of those who built it. It stands as a quiet monument to the wisdom passed down through the ages, a place where generations of farmers learned to live in harmony with the land, to adapt to the seasons, and to endure the harshest winters. The shelter has done its job. It has kept the storm at bay, offering warmth, protection, and a place of rest. The work of survival continues, but for tonight, the shelter stands firm. The fire has burned down to a soft glow, and the quiet of the night wraps around you like a blanket. Outside, the snow continues to fall, but inside, you are safe. The storm is over, and the shelter has proven itself. You are protected, you are warm, and for tonight, you can rest easy. Tomorrow will bring new tasks and new challenges, but for now, the cycle of survival has paused. The shelter, built with care and resilience, has seen you through another storm. And tonight, it provides the peace and safety that only a well-built home can offer. The world outside remains shrouded in the soft blanket of snow, the moonlight glistening off the landscape as if nature itself has paused in quiet reverence. The storm has passed, but its lingering presence is still felt in the thick, unbroken silence. Within the shelter, however, there is a profound stillness that wraps around you like a protective cocoon. The hearth, now only embers, continues to warm the room, providing a subtle reminder of the day's resilience. You are safe, secure, and surrounded by the shelter that has withstood yet another trial of nature. As you relax into the comfort of the shelter, a sense of deep gratitude fills you. The storm may have raged outside, but inside, this small home has proven to be more than just a physical space. It is a symbol of survival, a testament to the centuries of wisdom passed down through generations of farmers. These homes weren't built just to provide shelter, they were built to endure, to protect, and to foster life in the most challenging conditions. The materials that make up your shelter are simple, yet extraordinary in their ability to resist the harshness of the outside world. The thatched roof, which had to be carefully maintained to prevent the weight of snow from collapsing it, was one of the most ingenious solutions to the challenge of keeping warm during the winter months. The layers of straw and reed acted as a natural insulator, trapping the heat inside while allowing the snow to accumulate on top. This added layer of insulation kept the temperature inside the shelter more stable, even during the coldest nights. The walls, made of wattle and daub, also played a crucial role. The process of weaving branches to form the skeleton of the walls, then covering them with a mixture of mud, clay, and straw, was a simple yet effective way to keep the cold wind at bay. The daub, once applied, acted as a sealant that blocked drafts and helped maintain warmth inside the home. Despite the rustic nature of the walls, they were designed to keep out the elements while allowing the shelter to breathe. The moisture from the air was able to escape, preventing the build-up of dampness that could lead to rot. Each part of the home, from the thatched roof to the wattle and daub walls, worked in harmony with the land. The medieval farmer didn't just build a home, they built a structure that was deeply connected to the environment, shaped by the natural world in which it stood. Every detail, from the materials used to the way the home was designed, reflected a deep understanding of the land's rhythms and cycles. The shelter was built to coexist with nature, not to fight against it. The hearth, at the very heart of the home, was the most important part of the shelter. Without it, the home would have been little more than an empty shell. The fire provided warmth, light, and a gathering place for the family. It was the central element that made the shelter livable during the long winter months. The warmth of the hearth not only kept the family warm but also provided the light needed to navigate the dark winter nights. It was around the fire that meals were cooked, stories were shared, and the bonds of family were strengthened. The hearth was the lifeblood of the medieval home. And yet, maintaining the hearth was no simple task. The fire required constant attention. Firewood had to be gathered, chopped, and stored in preparation for the winter. The fire itself needed to be stoked regularly to keep it burning. The heat it provided was crucial, but it came with a price. Gathering firewood required time and effort, and without a steady supply, the fire would go out, leaving the family cold and vulnerable to the winter's harsh grip. The animals housed in the shelter were equally important to survival. The warmth they provided, especially during the coldest nights, helped to maintain a more stable temperature inside the home. The close quarters between the family and the livestock were necessary during the winter, when the cold could be life-threatening. The animals weren't just sources of food and labor, they were companions in the struggle to survive. The farmer provided the animals with care, food, and shelter, and in return, the animals shared their warmth, helping the family endure the worst of the cold. As you sit by the fire, feeling the warmth slowly begin to dissipate with the fire's final embers, you are reminded of how this shelter has allowed you to endure the storm. It has done its job, protecting you from the fury of nature. The wind may still howl outside, and the snow may still fall, but within these walls you are safe. The shelter has kept you warm, dry, and protected. The work that went into building and maintaining the shelter was not just physical, it was a labor of love, a testament to the farmer's understanding of the land and its cycles. The shelter wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a place to live, to thrive, and to survive. And as you rest tonight, knowing that you are secure within its walls, you understand just how much has been invested in this small, humble home. Tomorrow will bring new tasks, new challenges, but for tonight, you rest easy. The storm outside has passed, and the shelter has withstood its fury. You are warm, safe, and secure. The work of the medieval farmer may never be done, but for tonight, you are able to rest, knowing that your shelter will continue to protect you, just as it has for countless generations before you. The fire is fading, the wind has calmed, and the shelter stands firm against the night. The night presses on in its quiet serenity, the room now bathed in soft shadows as the fire burns down to its final embers. The silence outside is profound, with only the occasional rustle of snow shifting in the wind, now faint and subdued. Inside your shelter, however, there's a calm stillness, a quiet reassurance in the way the walls stand firm. The thatched roof holds steady, and the warmth from the hearth still lingers in the air. The storm has passed, and the world outside seems far removed from the comforting space you've created within. You take a deep breath, savoring the warmth, the sense of security that wraps around you like a blanket. You realize with a quiet sense of gratitude just how much your shelter means. It's not just a roof over your head, it's a sanctuary, a lifeline built with the care and resourcefulness of those who've lived through generations of winters, of storms, of relentless cold. This humble home has done more than protect you from the harshness of nature. It's kept the cycle of life moving, year after year. From the thatched roof that shielded you from snow to the fire that kept you warm, every element of the shelter worked in harmony to ensure your survival. The materials used in the construction of your home might seem simple: wood, straw, clay, but in the medieval world, these elements were the foundation of survival. Each material was chosen not just for its availability, but for its specific qualities that made it perfect for the harsh conditions. The thatched roof, for instance, though often seen as something quaint, was an ingenious solution to the problem of insulation. The layers of straw, reed, or grass, carefully arranged, allowed the snow to accumulate on top, providing an additional layer of insulation that helped trap the heat inside the shelter. The snow itself, though cold and unwelcome when falling, was a key part of keeping the interior warm during the winter months. As you sit near the hearth, the last embers slowly fading, you reflect on the resourcefulness it took to create a shelter that could withstand the fiercest storms. The walls, made of wattle and daub, may have seemed rough and rudimentary, but they were carefully constructed to be effective insulators, keeping the cold out and the warmth in. The mixture of clay, straw, and mud that covered the woven branches created a durable surface that provided both strength and flexibility, allowing the home to breathe while still offering protection from the elements. And then there was the hearth, the heart of the home, the source of warmth and light. Without the fire, the shelter would have been little more than a cold, empty structure. The fire was the center of life in the medieval home. It wasn't just where the family gathered to cook and eat, it was where stories were shared, where relationships were built, and where the long, dark nights were made bearable. The warmth from the hearth extended beyond the physical. It was the warmth of family, of community, of shared survival. But keeping the hearth going wasn't easy. Firewood had to be gathered and stored, and it had to be kept dry to burn properly. The fire needed constant attention to keep it alive throughout the night. The task of tending the fire was one of many that required patience, care, and foresight. And yet, it was this constant attention that allowed the shelter to remain habitable through the coldest of winters. Without the fire, the shelter would be nothing more than a shelter in name alone, a place to sleep but not to live. As the fire dims and the warmth begins to dissipate, you realize that while the storm outside may have passed, the work of survival is ongoing. The shelter has done its job. It has protected you, kept you warm, and allowed you to rest. But tomorrow, the work continues. There are always tasks to be done, always ways to improve, to maintain, to prepare for the next storm. The medieval farmer's life was never easy, but it was a life built on the constant effort of adapting, of learning, and of surviving. Tomorrow you will wake up to a world still covered in snow, still cold and still challenging, but you will be ready. The shelter, with its thatched roof and sturdy walls, will stand strong against whatever the weather throws at it. The hearth will be stoked once more, and the fire will provide its warmth. The animals will be cared for, the firewood will be replenished, and the cycles of life will continue, as they always have. As you drift into sleep, surrounded by the comforting warmth of the hearth, you feel a sense of peace settle over you. The storm is over. The shelter stands firm. You are safe. And for now, that is enough. The work will never stop, but tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you will face whatever challenges come your way. But for tonight, you are secure. The shelter has done its job, and you are protected from the world outside. The fire now barely flickers, its light reduced to the soft glow of embers, yet the warmth still lingers in the air, a comforting reminder of the shelter's resilience. The storm outside is but a memory, the snow now settling into a peaceful stillness under the pale moonlight. The wind that once howled against the walls is now reduced to a faint whisper, and in the absence of its fierce cry, the world feels as though it's been held in a tranquil pause. Inside your shelter, there's a deep, calm quiet, the kind of silence that speaks to a kind of peace only found when the dangers of nature have passed. You sit back into the warmth of your cloak, the familiar weight of the woolen fabric grounding you as you settle in for the night. The hearth, though no longer blazing, has given you everything it promised. It provided light, warmth, and comfort through the long hours of the storm, and now, in its final moments, it offers a sense of quiet satisfaction. In the glow of the embers, you can feel the weight of the day slip away, knowing that you are safe. The shelter you rest in has stood strong through the storm, and you can now enjoy the simple peace of knowing it will continue to stand against whatever else nature may bring. But that peace is born from the work that has gone into this very shelter. In the world of medieval farming, the effort to build and maintain a shelter was constant. There were no off days, no break from the vigilance required to keep the home standing firm against the harshest seasons. Everything, the thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, the hearth, was the result of meticulous work and care. And while those elements may seem simple by modern standards, they were the very foundation of survival in the medieval world. They allowed the farmer to withstand the storm, to endure the cold, and to rest easy, if only for a moment, in the shelter of their creation. You reflect on the roof, the humble thatch, which, while often viewed as a rustic feature, was in fact an engineering marvel of its time. The layers of straw or reed, arranged carefully to allow snow to accumulate while still keeping the heat inside, acted as nature's own insulation. The design wasn't just about protecting from the rain or wind, it was a clever way of using the natural elements to work for you. The snow, heavy as it might have been, contributed to keeping the warmth within the shelter, making the house not just a refuge, but a space that, despite its simplicity, could offer comfort in the face of adversity. And the walls' woven branches, coated with mud and clay, might have seemed rough, but in their simplicity, they were perfectly suited to the demands of winter. The walls were flexible, able to breathe, and allowed moisture to escape. They prevented the cold from seeping in and helped trap the warmth from the hearth, where the family gathered to share meals, stories, and the comfort of togetherness. Without these walls, the fire would have been far less effective. Without the fire, the shelter would have been little more than four walls against the elements, a cold and unwelcoming space. But with them, with this careful craftsmanship, the shelter became something much more a home. The hearth itself, the center of all activity in the medieval home, had been more than just a source of light and heat. It was the heartbeat of the household, where everything came together. Cooking, conversation, and warmth radiated from it, and around it, life unfolded. The fire wasn't just necessary, it was a symbol of life itself, of the energy and vitality that kept the home alive even as the winter outside threatened to take everything. The simple act of gathering wood, of tending to the flames, was a daily reminder of the effort it took to stay alive. It wasn't just about warmth, it was about sustaining the very life of the home, of ensuring that everyone inside was cared for. But the work of building and maintaining a shelter wasn't just about survival, it was also about connection. The shelter was built not just with hands, but with a deep understanding of the environment. It reflected the knowledge that had been passed down from one generation to the next, the knowledge of what materials worked best, what techniques kept the cold at bay, and what designs allowed the family to live, work, and thrive. It was a place that carried the weight of history, of the efforts of countless farmers who had faced the same struggles and had used the same materials to craft their homes. As you sit by the hearth, you feel the steady rhythm of the night settling over you. The storm outside has left behind a stillness that now seems almost unnatural, yet comforting. You are warm, you are safe, and you are secure in the knowledge that the shelter has stood the test of time. It has endured the storm, and with it, so have you. The shelter may have been built with simple materials, but in its design and care, it holds the legacy of those who came before you, who built homes just like this one, in order to survive the brutal winters and endless challenges of medieval life. As the embers burn lower and the night deepens, you feel a sense of peace. Tomorrow will bring its own set of challenges, but for tonight, the shelter has provided everything you need. It has given you warmth, protection, and a place of rest. You are safe, and for now, that is enough. The storm has passed, and with the shelter standing firm around you, you are ready for whatever the next day brings. The night stretches on quietly, the fire now reduced to a faint glow of embers that gently pulse in the darkness. The warmth of the hearth still lingers in the air, a soft, comforting reminder of the shelter's steady presence. Outside, the world is blanketed in snow, the storm now a quiet memory. The winds, once fierce and unrelenting, have calmed, leaving behind a stillness that blankets the land. In this moment of peace, you sit in your shelter, surrounded by the quiet strength of the walls, the warmth of the fire, and the safety of the home you've crafted. There's something deeply reassuring about the shelter you inhabit tonight. It stands firm against the elements, a testament to the wisdom and effort that went into its creation. Every part of it, the thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, the hearth, was built with survival in mind. Each element is carefully designed to work with nature, not against it, and together they form a space that offers both protection and comfort. The storm outside may have raged with fury, but inside these walls, you were shielded from its wrath. The storm has passed, but the shelter remains, as strong as ever. You reflect on the design of the shelter and the wisdom behind its construction. The thatched roof, though simple, is an incredible solution to the problem of insulation. The layers of straw, reed, or grass were expertly arranged to trap heat inside the home, while allowing the snow to accumulate on top, creating an additional layer of insulation. The snow, though cold when falling, becomes a crucial part of the shelter's defense against the cold once it settles. The roof may have needed constant maintenance to prevent the weight of snow from causing collapse, but when properly maintained, it proved to be an ideal barrier against the elements. The walls, constructed from wattle and daub, were another critical element in keeping the shelter warm and protected. The interwoven branches, coated with a mixture of clay, mud, and straw, formed a solid, insulative barrier that kept out the worst of the wind and cold. The walls weren't airtight, but their construction allowed the shelter to breathe, preventing moisture from accumulating inside. This natural ventilation helped ensure that the shelter remained dry, preventing rot and decay that could otherwise compromise its integrity. Then there was the hearth, the centerpiece of the home. It provided not just warmth but light, and was the focal point of daily life. The hearth was where meals were cooked, where clothes were dried, and where the family gathered to share stories, laughter, and warmth during the long winter nights. Without the hearth, the shelter would have been little more than a structure to sleep in, but with it, the home became a living, breathing space where life could continue, even in the darkest months of the year. The hearth wasn't just functional, it was a symbol of life itself. Its warmth was a reminder that, even in the harshest of winters, the farmer and their family could endure. Yet, as much as the hearth provided warmth and comfort, it also required constant attention. Gathering firewood, maintaining the fire, and ensuring that the hearth was kept clean were all vital tasks. A shortage of firewood could mean the difference between surviving the winter and succumbing to the cold. The act of tending the fire, of nurturing it to life, was a reflection of the farmer's commitment to ensuring the family's survival. It was a labor of love, one that never ended, but it was also a source of comfort, of warmth, and of connection to the land. The shelter itself was not just a place to live, it was a carefully crafted space that allowed the farmer to thrive, even in the most difficult of conditions. The construction of the home, though humble in its materials, was a reflection of the farmer's deep knowledge of the land. The use of thatch, the wattle and daub walls, the placement of the hearth, all of these elements were chosen for their ability to work with nature, to survive in the face of winter's harshest conditions. It wasn't just about building a home, it was about understanding the land and the seasons, adapting to them, and using what nature provided to ensure survival. Tonight, as the fire dims and the last embers flicker out, you realize just how much effort went into the creation of this shelter. The medieval farmer didn't just build a home, they built a space that could withstand the challenges of the harshest winters. The shelter you now rest in is a product of generations of learning, adapting, and perfecting. It was built with care, with patience, and with an understanding of the rhythms of nature. The shelter was designed not just to protect against the elements, but to allow life to continue in spite of them. As you settle in, the quiet comfort of the shelter wraps around you like a warm embrace. The storm outside may have passed, but within these walls, you are safe, you are warm, and you are protected. The shelter, though humble, is a testament to the resilience of those who came before you, who built homes just like this one to endure the coldest winters and the harshest storms. And tonight, as the embers fade into the quiet of the night, you understand the power of these simple yet extraordinary homes. Tomorrow will bring new tasks, new challenges, but for now, you can rest easy. The shelter has stood the test of time and the storm's fury. It has kept you warm, safe, and secure, just as it has for countless generations before you. The work of survival never ends, but tonight, you can rest. The fire may be out, but the shelter remains strong, steady, and ready to face whatever challenges the world brings tomorrow. The warmth from the hearth is nearly gone now, but the lingering comfort of its glow fills the room, soothing your senses. The embers are dimming, leaving the room in a soft, quiet darkness. Outside, the wind has stopped its howl, and the snow has softened into a peaceful blanket, the world wrapped in its tranquil white shroud. The storm, which once threatened to overwhelm you, has passed. The shelter around you stands firm, silent, yet steadfast, like a protective guardian against the world outside. Within these walls, there is no need for words, only the reassurance that you are safe. You take a deep, contented breath, letting the stillness settle over you. The storm has gone, but the shelter remains, a constant reminder of the careful craftsmanship and resilience that went into its construction. It is hard to imagine what life would be like without this home. It has been more than just a place to sleep. It has been a space that has allowed you to endure the most trying of conditions, a place that has protected you through the worst of the winter. And as you sit in the stillness of the night, surrounded by the comforting warmth that lingers even in the fire's final moments, you feel deeply connected to the generations of farmers who once relied on the same principles to survive. In the quiet, you reflect on the work that has gone into building this shelter. Every aspect of the design was created with survival in mind. The thatched roof, which shed snow and trapped heat, was the first line of defense against the cold. The thatch had to be carefully layered and maintained, with farmers regularly clearing it of snow to prevent collapse. The roof, though simple, was an excellent insulator, and when combined with the natural insulating properties of the walls, it formed the foundation of a warm, safe space. The wattle and daub walls, too, were carefully constructed to allow for ventilation while keeping the cold air out. Though the walls weren't airtight, their ability to breathe helped maintain a dry, healthy environment inside the shelter, keeping it livable even during the dampest of winters. The hearth, of course, was the most important part of the shelter. It provided not just heat, but light and comfort. It was around the hearth that the family gathered, shared meals, and found solace in one another's company. The fire was the beating heart of the home, the source of warmth that made the difference between surviving the winter and succumbing to its cold grip. The effort to keep the fire going, gathering firewood, tending to the flames, ensuring the hearth was maintained, was a task that required attention and care, but it was this very effort that made survival possible. Without the fire, the shelter would have been little more than 4 walls and a roof. But even with the hearth, even with the sturdy walls and the insulating roof, the shelter would not have been complete without the connection to the land. The medieval farmer, in their wisdom, understood the delicate balance between working with nature and respecting its power. Every decision, from the construction of the home to the gathering of firewood, was made with a deep awareness of the land's rhythms. The shelter was not just a place to live, it was a product of that connection, an expression of the farmer's knowledge, skill, and adaptability. The materials, all harvested from the land, were used not just for function, but with an understanding of how to make the most of what nature provided. As you sit by the last glowing embers, you feel the deep connection between your shelter and the earth around you. The thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, the hearth. Each element of this home is a reflection of the careful balance the farmer must maintain with the land. You have not just built a home, but have worked with nature to create a sanctuary, a refuge from the storm. The storm outside has passed, and the world is still. But inside, there is warmth, peace, and a quiet sense of security. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the demands of the world. The shelter will continue to serve its purpose, providing warmth, protection, and a space for life to unfold. The wind may pick up again, and the snow may return, but the shelter will remain, just as it always has. For now, though, you can rest easy. The work of survival will continue, but for tonight, the storm has passed, and you are safe. The fire's final flicker dims, leaving only the softest warmth. As the night deepens, you close your eyes, knowing that tomorrow will bring more challenges, but tonight the shelter stands firm against the cold, and you are protected from the world outside. The shelter has done its job, and you can rest, knowing it will continue to serve you, just as it has for generations before. The night continues its quiet rhythm, the warmth of the fire now a distant memory as the embers fade to a soft glow. Outside, the snow remains untouched, a peaceful expanse of white that reflects the gentle light of the moon. The storm has passed, and the wind that had once screamed across the land is now a mere whisper in the distance. Inside your shelter, all is still, save for the occasional creak of the wooden beams above you as they settle into place after the weight of the storm. The warmth of the hearth lingers, a comforting presence that reassures you of the safety your home provides. It is easy, in moments like this, to take for granted the small comforts that a shelter offers, to simply relax into the stillness and forget the work that went into making this moment possible. The medieval farmer's life was not one of ease. It was a life shaped by the land and the seasons, where each day brought new challenges and struggles to face. But tonight, as you sit within the shelter's protective walls, there is a deep sense of peace. The storm outside, though powerful, is no match for the shelter that has withstood its fury. The roof, the walls, and the hearth all stand as a testament to the farmer's skill and knowledge, a knowledge passed down through the generations, honed by trial and error, and perfected in the effort to survive. The thatched roof above you, while simple in design, has proven to be an invaluable part of the shelter. Its layers of straw and reed, though fragile in appearance, serve a very practical purpose. The snow, once it accumulates on top of the roof, helps to trap heat inside the home, providing an extra layer of insulation. While the weight of the snow can be a threat if left unchecked, the roof is built to shed it, ensuring that the shelter remains stable and protected. This clever design, born from a deep understanding of the land's rhythms, has kept you safe through the storm. The walls, made of wattle and daub, are another vital part of the shelter's strength. These simple, yet effective walls serve as a barrier against the wind and cold. The wattle, a woven lattice of branches, is coated with a thick mixture of mud, straw, and clay, creating a solid surface that blocks drafts while still allowing the shelter to breathe. The walls, though rough in texture, are resilient. They keep out the worst of the elements, allowing the heat from the hearth to remain trapped inside, and providing the warmth that you need to endure the night. And of course, the hearth, the heart of the home, remains the most essential element of all. Without it, the shelter would have been little more than a shelter, a space to sleep, but not to live. The hearth is where life happens. It's where the family gathers, where meals are prepared, where stories are shared, and where warmth radiates out to fill every corner of the shelter. The fire, constantly stoked and tended, is the source of warmth and comfort, a reminder of the constant effort it takes to survive. It is not just a source of heat, it is a symbol of life itself, a reminder of the resilience required to make it through the darkest months of the year. As the night deepens, you reflect on how much has been invested in this space. The shelter is a product of both knowledge and effort, a space built by hands that understood the land and its rhythms. Every layer of thatch, every branch woven into the walls, every log added to the fire, is a testament to the work of those who came before you. Their survival depended on the very same shelter you now rest in, and their ingenuity lives on in the materials that keep you safe. The animals that share your shelter also play a crucial role in this system. Their presence, though often overlooked, provides an additional layer of warmth and security. The livestock, with their body heat, help to keep the temperature inside stable, especially during the coldest nights. This mutual reliance between the family and the animals is a reminder of the delicate balance that must be maintained in order to survive. The animals depend on the shelter for warmth and protection, just as you depend on them for food, labor, and warmth. This symbiotic relationship between human and animal is vital for survival in the medieval world, and it is part of the fabric that holds this shelter together. As you sit in the quiet of the night, the warmth of the shelter still clinging to you, you realize just how much this home means. It is not just a place to rest, it is a sanctuary that has protected you from the storm, a space that has allowed you to thrive in a world that is often cold and unforgiving. The shelter is a product of generations of knowledge and care, built with the intention of ensuring that life could continue, even in the most difficult of conditions. Tomorrow, the world will continue to turn, and the work of survival will begin anew. The shelter will continue to protect, the hearth will continue to burn, and the animals will continue to share their warmth. The storm outside may return, but inside these walls, you are safe. For now, you can rest. The shelter has done its job, and tomorrow, it will be ready to do it all over again. The calm of the night settles deeper as you lie in the quiet, the faint glow of the embers now almost gone. The world outside is draped in an eerie stillness, the snow blanketing the earth like a quiet sentinel. The wind has ceased its cruel whispering, and the only sound is the occasional creak of the shelter's frame as it adjusts to the weight of the cold. But within the walls of your home, all is peaceful. The shelter stands resilient against the elements, its very structure, a promise of survival, and tonight, it has delivered. The effort that went into creating and maintaining this shelter may have been tiring, but in moments like this, it becomes clear how much it truly means. This small, humble space is a product of generations of hard work, ingenuity, and adaptation to the rhythms of the land. The medieval farmer, with little more than the resources nature provided, crafted homes that could withstand the harshest winters, endure the weight of snow, and protect against the biting cold. Tonight, as you rest in the safety of your shelter, you understand just how much these homes were a lifeline, how much care went into every aspect of their construction. The thatched roof, now still under the blanket of snow, is a perfect example of that ingenuity. While it may seem a simple material, it was anything but. The thatch, carefully layered, served as an excellent insulator, trapping heat within the shelter and providing protection against the snow that could otherwise pile up on the roof. The snow itself became part of the system, its weight serving as an additional barrier against the cold. The medieval farmer understood this delicate balance that the snow could be both an enemy and an ally. The roof had to be maintained, kept clear of excess snow to prevent collapse, but the design was a clever one, allowing the shelter to work in harmony with the elements rather than against them. Then there were the walls. The wattle and daub, though rustic in appearance, were crucial to the shelter's survival. The method of weaving branches and covering them with a mix of clay, mud, and straw was a practice that allowed for both insulation and ventilation. It wasn't just about creating a solid barrier from the wind, it was about managing moisture, preventing dampness, and allowing the shelter to breathe. The materials may have been simple, but the way they worked together was nothing short of brilliant. These walls, built with care and attention, were more than just a protective shield. They were a testament to the understanding of the land and the farmer's ability to use what was available to ensure survival. The hearth, though now only a bed of glowing embers, was the heart of the home. It wasn't just a source of warmth, it was the place where life occurred. The fire provided light during the dark winter nights, heat during the freezing cold hours, and a place for the family to gather, eat, and share stories. Without it, the shelter would have been a cold, empty space. The effort to keep the fire alive, to gather the firewood, stoke the flames, and maintain the hearth was a constant task, but it was a necessary one. The fire was more than just practical. It was a symbol of the resilience and determination of the farmer to thrive, not merely survive. And then there were the animals. The animals in the shelter were not just livestock to be cared for, they were partners in survival. The warmth they provided was invaluable during the coldest nights, helping to maintain a more stable temperature inside. The animals needed the shelter as much as the farmer did, and in turn, the farmer relied on the animals for food, labor, and warmth. The close quarters in which both human and animal coexisted during the winter months were essential to the survival of both. This interdependence is a reminder of the delicate balance between humans and nature, and how much the shelter relied on this balance to keep everyone warm and safe. As you lie in the quiet, reflecting on the shelter around you, you realize that the work never truly ends. The shelter must always be maintained, its roof cleared, its walls repaired, its hearth tended to. The farmer's life, though physically exhausting, was one of constant learning, adjusting, and adapting. There was no perfect solution to the challenges of winter, only a continuous effort to stay one step ahead of the cold, the wind, and the snow. The shelter, in its simplicity, was the result of a lifetime of hard work, and it was a reflection of the farmer's understanding of the world around them. Tonight, the shelter stands firm. It has withstood the storm, kept you warm, and allowed you to rest. Tomorrow, the cycle of survival will begin again. The firewood will need to be replenished, the animals cared for, and the roof checked. The challenges of the world outside never truly stop, but inside your shelter, there is peace. The work of the day may never be done, but for now, the shelter stands, and you can rest, knowing that it will continue to protect you from the world outside. The storm may return again, the cold may bite at the walls, but for tonight, the shelter is enough. The fire may be low, but its warmth is lasting. The roof may be covered in snow, but it will shed it and keep the warmth inside. The walls may be simple, but they stand strong, blocking the cold and holding the warmth of life within. And inside, you are safe. Tomorrow will come, but tonight, you rest easy. The shelter has done its job, and for that, you are thankful. The storm is gone. The peace remains. The world outside remains still, the snow now gently falling in a soft, rhythmic pattern. The storm is over, but the air retains a crisp, biting chill. Yet inside the shelter there is a warmth that lingers, a sense of safety and security that provides a quiet refuge from the cold. The fire has long since dwindled to a quiet bed of embers, casting a final, gentle glow upon the walls of the home. Though the warmth from the hearth begins to fade, the shelter itself continues to protect, its walls and roof standing firm against the cold. As you relax into the comfort of the space, a deep sense of appreciation settles over you. The shelter has proven itself once again. Its walls, constructed from wattle and daub, sturdy and simple, have kept the wind and snow at bay. The thatched roof, despite the heavy weight of snow that had fallen during the storm, has held strong, offering shelter and warmth. The hearth, though no longer ablaze, has provided the warmth you needed to survive the storm. All of these elements, though humble, have come together to create a sanctuary. It's a reminder that survival is not just about raw endurance, but about the careful balance between human ingenuity and the natural world. You reflect on how every part of this shelter, from the roof to the walls, has been built with purpose. The thatch, while seeming fragile, is a masterful solution to the need for insulation and protection. It's not just about the material itself, but the way it works with nature, how the snow that accumulates on top becomes an additional layer of insulation, and how the thatch works to keep the warmth inside while shedding the cold outside. The roof, though prone to wear from the harsh conditions, has stood firm under the weight of nature's fury. The farmer, in their wisdom, understood that maintenance was a constant responsibility, and tonight, as you rest, it's clear how much that constant care mattered. The walls, too, tell the story of survival. The wattle and daub construction, though not perfect, is an ingenious method of using the land's resources to create shelter. The weaving of branches, reinforced with a mixture of mud, straw, and clay, has provided a sturdy barrier against the cold wind and snow. And just as importantly, the structure allows for ventilation, ensuring that the shelter remains dry and livable. In a world without modern materials or tools, the medieval farmer learned how to use what was readily available, creating a home that could endure through the harshest of winters. As you sit there, enveloped in the stillness of the night, you realize how much of this shelter's strength lies in its simplicity. Every material, every design, every decision made in its construction was aimed at ensuring warmth, safety, and survival. There was no excess, no luxury, only what was necessary to withstand the challenges of nature. The walls, the roof, the hearth, the animals all came together in a delicate balance, each element contributing to the overall well-being of the family. It wasn't just the shelter itself that mattered, it was the knowledge passed down through generations, the ability to work with nature, and the relentless effort to adapt to an ever-changing world. Tonight, as the snow continues to fall outside and the last embers of the fire flicker out, you understand the profound connection between the shelter and its occupants. The shelter isn't just a physical space, it is a product of years of learning, of adaptation, and of survival. The medieval farmer didn't just build homes, they built sanctuaries, places that allowed them to weather the storms and the cold, to live through the harsh winters and come out on the other side. Tomorrow, you will rise to face the work that always comes with a new day. There are always tasks to complete, repairs to be made, and new challenges to face. But for tonight, you can rest easy. The storm is over, the shelter stands firm, and you are safe. The hearth will be stoked again tomorrow, the animals cared for, and the roof checked for snow. The work never truly ends, but for now, the shelter has done its job. It has kept you warm, protected you from the storm, and allowed you a moment of rest. As you close your eyes and let sleep take you, you feel a sense of quiet satisfaction. You are secure, you are safe, and you are warm. The shelter has provided everything you need. And for tonight, that is enough. The storm may return, but the shelter will stand as it always has. And when the morning comes, you will rise to face whatever the world brings, knowing that, whatever the challenge, the shelter will be there to protect you. The night deepens as the embers of the fire slowly fade into darkness, leaving behind the quiet warmth that lingers in the air. The shelter, now silent except for the occasional creak of the beams settling in the cold, continues to stand strong. The wind outside no longer howls, the snow has calmed, and all is peaceful. The storm has passed, and for now, there is stillness both outside and within. It is a stillness that seems to echo the quiet resolve of the shelter itself. Tonight, it has fulfilled its purpose. You stretch into the comfort of your blankets, feeling the warmth of the room slowly dissipating with the fading light of the fire. The air, while still cold in places, is bearable. The shelter, with its sturdy walls and insulating roof, has kept the cold at bay. The layers of straw and reed that form the thatched roof have done their job, shedding the snow that fell so heavily and retaining the warmth you need to survive the night. It is a simple structure, yes, but it is effective, crafted with care, built from the knowledge of those who lived here long before you. They too endured the brutal storms, the relentless cold, and the endless tasks of survival. Their hands shaped the home you now rest in, using techniques honed over centuries to create a space that could withstand nature's most violent tempests. The walls of the shelter, constructed from wattle and daub, speak to the ingenuity of medieval farmers. The combination of wood, clay, straw, and mud may seem rudimentary to modern eyes, but they form a barrier that holds back the wind and insulates against the cold. The flexibility of the wattle and daub allows the walls to breathe, preventing moisture buildup while still keeping the warmth inside. The shelter, though made from humble materials, is a masterwork of practical design. It was never about excess, only what was necessary to survive. The roof, the walls, and the hearth, all working together, form a structure that can endure. And then there is the hearth, the centerpiece of the home. Though the fire has dwindled to a few glowing embers, the hearth remains the beating heart of the shelter. Without it, the home would have been empty, just walls and a roof. The fire is what makes the shelter come alive, what transforms it from a place of mere shelter to a place of life. It provides warmth, yes, but it also brings light to the dark winter nights, and serves as the center of family life. It is where meals are cooked, where stories are shared, and where the bonds of family are strengthened through shared experiences. The fire itself, though small now, is a constant reminder of the effort it takes to survive. It requires constant tending, gathering firewood, and keeping it stoked to ensure warmth. But without it, survival would be much harder. Tonight, as the last glow of the fire flickers out, you are reminded of the delicate balance between the shelter and the world around you. The storm may be over, but nature's cycles continue, and the shelter must be maintained. It is a living, breathing structure that requires constant attention to keep it functional. The roof must be checked after every snowfall, the walls must be kept in good repair, and the fire must be stoked to ensure that warmth is always available. This vigilance, while tiring, is a small price to pay for the safety and comfort the shelter provides. The animals that share the shelter with you play an equally important role. Their warmth, too, helps to keep the shelter livable, especially during the coldest nights. The close quarters between human and animal are not without their challenges yet. They are necessary. The animals provide warmth, and in return, the shelter provides them with safety from the elements. The interdependence between farmer and animal is a vital aspect of medieval life, ensuring that everyone within the shelter is cared for, even in the harshest conditions. You take one last look at the shelter, the soft, fading glow from the embers casting a warm hue on the walls, and you feel the comfort of being home. The storm has passed, and you are secure. Tomorrow, the cycle of work and maintenance will begin again. There will be more tasks, more repairs, and more preparations for whatever the next storm may bring. But tonight, you rest, knowing that your shelter has protected you, and that it will continue to do so. The care, effort, and knowledge that went into creating this space have allowed you to survive, and will continue to allow you to thrive, no matter what the world outside may throw your way. The fire is out, but the warmth remains. The storm has passed, but the shelter stands firm. And for tonight, that is enough. The night settles into its deep, tranquil rhythm. The last embers of the fire, now little more than faint whispers of warmth in the cold, quiet air. Outside, the snow falls gently, covering the earth with its soft, unbroken white blanket. The storm, which once roared in fury, has quieted, leaving only the aftermath, the peaceful stillness of the world, as it takes a moment to breathe. Within the shelter, there is calm as well. The shelter has withstood the storm, and you sit within it, enveloped in the peace that comes with the knowledge that, for now, all is well. As you lean back, wrapped in the warmth of your cloak, a deep sense of comfort and safety fills you. The storm may have battered the land, but the shelter remains, as strong and steady as it has always been. The roof, though now covered in a thin layer of snow, stands resilient, a perfect example of the ingenuity that went into its design. The thatch, while seemingly simple, was carefully crafted to shed snow, trapping heat inside and providing protection from the cold. The walls, made from the clever use of wattle and daub, continue to block the wind and hold the warmth that comes from the hearth. And the hearth itself, now quiet but still holding the warmth from the fire, remains the heart of the home. It has done its job, providing light, warmth, and comfort through the storm. You reflect on the effort that went into creating this home, a place where survival was possible even in the harshest of conditions. It is a reminder that the medieval farmer's life, though difficult, was rooted in deep knowledge and respect for the land. Every material, every technique used to build this shelter was designed to work with nature, not against it. The thatch, the wattle, the daub, and the hearth, each element is a testament to the farmer's ability to adapt to the challenges of the seasons and to use what the land provided to create a safe space for the family. This is no mere dwelling, it is a carefully constructed system of survival, one that has stood the test of time and weathered the storms of countless winters. The simplicity of the shelter is, in itself, a kind of brilliance. There is nothing extraneous in its design, nothing that isn't necessary for survival. The materials are simple, the structure is humble, but the effect is profound. This is a home that can endure, that can withstand the worst that nature has to offer. It is a home that not only keeps the cold at bay, but also provides a space where life can continue, where the family can gather, work, and rest in safety. The medieval farmer understood that survival wasn't just about enduring the cold, it was about creating a place that allowed life to persist, even in the face of adversity. As you sit in the quiet of the shelter, the warmth of the fire still lingering in the air, you begin to understand the profound connection between the farmer and their home. The shelter was more than just a building, it was a partnership between the farmer and the land. The farmer shaped the shelter, but the shelter, in turn, shaped the farmer's life. The effort to build it, to maintain it, and to live within it was a constant cycle. And through this cycle, the farmer and their family endured, year after year, through the storms, the winters, and the hardships. Tonight, as the snow continues to fall and the wind no longer howls outside, you rest easy, knowing that the shelter has done its job. It has kept you warm, safe, and secure through the storm, and it will continue to do so in the days to come. The shelter is not just a place to live, it is a testament to the farmer's resilience, ingenuity, and deep understanding of the land. It is a space that has been crafted with care, with knowledge, and with the unwavering effort to survive. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin again. The work of maintaining the shelter, gathering firewood, and caring for the animals will continue. But tonight, you rest easy. The storm is over, the shelter has stood firm, and you are safe. The warmth from the hearth lingers, the shelter holds strong, and the world outside is peaceful. For tonight, at least, you are at peace as well. The storm has passed, the shelter remains. The night deepens further, and the shelter, now in a profound stillness, remains a quiet refuge from the world outside. The snow continues to blanket the landscape, now soft and untouched, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The storm has long since passed, and all that remains is the quiet aftermath. Inside, the warmth of the hearth has almost faded, but its comforting presence is still felt, as if lingering in the bones of the shelter. You lie back, wrapped in the cocoon of warmth that the shelter has provided, feeling safe and secure. The peace of this moment is a quiet reminder of just how much care has gone into the creation of this home. The storm outside may have tested the shelter, but it has not broken it. The thatched roof, though seemingly fragile, has held strong. The layers of straw and reed have provided insulation, trapping the warmth inside while allowing the snow to accumulate on top, forming an additional protective layer. The snow, once an unwelcome burden, has now become an ally, working with the roof to keep the cold from penetrating the shelter. The cleverness of this design, though simple, speaks to the deep understanding that medieval farmers had of their environment. They knew how to work with nature, how to make the most of what it provided, and how to survive in the harshest of conditions. The walls of wattle and daub, crafted from woven branches and a mixture of clay, straw, and mud, have done their job as well. The walls breathe, preventing moisture from building up, and the daub acts as a barrier, keeping the cold and wind at bay. Though not perfect, the walls provide a stable, warm environment inside the shelter. They too reflect the knowledge of the farmer using what was available in the land to create a space that could endure the most severe winters. The walls are more than just a protective barrier. They are an integral part of the shelter's ability to keep the family safe, warm, and dry. And of course, there is the hearth. The fire may be low now, but it is still a central part of the shelter. It is the heart of the home, the place where warmth, light, and life are centered. Without it, the shelter would be little more than a cold structure. The hearth brings everything together. It provides warmth for the family, a place to cook, and a space for the family to gather. It is the one constant that has kept the shelter alive, even during the harshest storms. The fire's warmth, its light, and the sense of comfort it brings are all essential to making the shelter not just a place to live, but a place to thrive. Tonight, as you rest in the shelter's warmth, you reflect on how much has gone into creating this space. The work that went into building it, maintaining it, and keeping it alive is immense. Every task, from repairing the roof after a heavy snowfall to gathering firewood to keeping the hearth stoked, requires constant attention. And yet, it is this constant care that has allowed the shelter to stand the test of time, providing safety and warmth for generations. The shelter is not just a physical structure, it is the embodiment of the farmer's resilience, their ingenuity, and their connection to the land. You think about the animals too, those that share the shelter with you. Their presence is not just for practical purposes. They too play a crucial role in the balance of the home. The warmth from their bodies helps to maintain the temperature inside the shelter, especially during the coldest nights. This interdependence between human and animal is essential for survival, especially in the harsh winters. The animals need the shelter to survive, and the shelter needs the animals to help keep it warm. This mutual dependence is a reminder of how intertwined life is in the medieval world, a delicate balance of resources, knowledge, and survival. As the fire burns lower and the room darkens, the shelter remains strong and steady, a testament to the work of those who have lived here before you. The storm is over, but the shelter stands firm. It has provided warmth, safety, and comfort through it all. Tomorrow, the work of maintaining the shelter will continue. The roof will need to be checked for snow, the firewood gathered, and the animals cared for. The cycle of life in the shelter is ongoing, and the work of survival is never truly done. But for tonight, the shelter has done its job. It has kept you safe from the storm, and now you rest. The snow continues to fall outside, but inside, all is calm. The shelter stands strong, as it always has, and for tonight, that is enough. You close your eyes, the final warmth of the hearth fading into the quiet of the night. Tomorrow, there will be work to do. But for now, you rest easy, knowing the shelter will remain steadfast, ready to face whatever challenges the next day brings. The silence of the night continues, enveloping the shelter in its peaceful embrace. Outside, the snow falls gently, covering the world in a soft white blanket, unbroken and serene. The storm that once raged has passed, leaving only the quiet aftermath. Inside, there is a stillness that reflects the calm of the night. The last embers from the hearth have all but faded, leaving the shelter in a comfortable, cool quiet. Yet, you feel a steady warmth lingering in the walls, a reminder that the shelter has fulfilled its purpose once again. The fire is gone, but its legacy endures in the heat it once provided. The hearth, though no longer ablaze, remains the heart of the home. The warmth that it offered through the worst of the storm is still felt, deep within the bones of the shelter. The design of the home, the thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, the central hearth has proven itself time and time again. Together, these elements have created a space that can endure the harshest winters, that can shelter from the fiercest storms. The work of the farmer, though demanding, has resulted in a home that can withstand the test of time. You take a slow, reflective breath, feeling the weight of the day lift from your shoulders. The storm may have passed, but its intensity still lingers in your mind. Yet, the shelter has proven itself, standing firm against nature's fury. The thatched roof, sturdy yet flexible, has shed the weight of the snow while holding in the warmth. The walls, made from wattle and daub, have kept out the cold, ensuring that you were shielded from the worst of the wind. The simplicity of these materials may seem humble, but they have been expertly crafted to create a space that offers protection, warmth, and comfort. In the medieval world, such craftsmanship was not just a skill, it was a necessity for survival. The hearth, once roaring with fire, now only gives off faint traces of heat, but its importance is ever present. It is more than just a source of warmth, it is a gathering place, a place of life. It is where meals were prepared, where stories were shared, where warmth was generated not just for the body, but for the spirit as well. It is the center of the home, the heart around which life in the shelter revolves. Without it, the shelter would be nothing more than four walls. With it, the shelter becomes a place where life unfolds, where the family comes together to weather the storms of life. As you rest tonight, feeling the steady pulse of the shelter around you, you realize just how much effort has gone into making this moment possible. The roof, the walls, the hearth, they are not just functional elements, but the result of generations of knowledge, passed down from one family to the next. The medieval farmer didn't just learn how to survive, they learned how to live in harmony with the land. They understood the rhythms of the seasons, the needs of the land, and the importance of creating a space that could endure the harshest of conditions. Each part of the shelter reflects that understanding, crafted with care, maintained with vigilance, and designed to offer comfort in the face of adversity. Tomorrow, the work of maintaining the shelter will continue. There will always be tasks to complete, checking the roof for snow, gathering firewood, caring for the animals, but for tonight, there is peace. The storm has passed, and the shelter remains, a quiet testament to the farmer's resilience. The work never ends, but the shelter provides respite, a space where rest is possible amidst the demands of survival. You close your eyes, the sound of the wind now a distant memory, the shelter offering you a safe haven from the cold. The warmth of the fire may have faded, but the comfort of the home, built through labor and love, remains. The storm is gone. The shelter stands firm. You are safe. For now, that is enough. The night stretches on, still and quiet, as the final traces of warmth from the hearth dissipate into the cool, still air. Outside, the snow continues to fall softly, undisturbed, covering the landscape in a quiet, pristine coat. The wind no longer howls, and the storm has passed. Only the faintest rustling of snowflakes settling on the roof reminds you that the elements still surround you. But inside the shelter, there is peace. The shelter, which has stood strong through the worst of the storm, remains your haven, offering protection, warmth, and safety from the world outside. You lie back in the comfort of your blanket, feeling the steady quiet of the shelter wrap around you. The work of the day is done, and the shelter has done its job. It has kept you warm, sheltered you from the cold, and provided a space for rest. The storm outside, though fierce, has not broken you or your home. The thatched roof, carefully constructed to shed the weight of the snow, has held strong. The wattle and daub walls, though simple, have provided a sturdy barrier, keeping out the wind and trapping the warmth inside. The hearth, now quiet but still warm in its memory, has offered not just heat but the heart of the home. You reflect on how much effort and care has gone into creating this space. Every part of the shelter, the roof, the walls, the fire, has been crafted with a deep understanding of the land and its seasons. The medieval farmer, faced with the brutal forces of nature, learned to work with the land, using what it provided to create a space where life could continue, even through the harshest winters. The thatch, the wattle, and the daub were not chosen by chance. They were the best materials available, carefully selected for their ability to withstand the elements. The thatched roof, though delicate in appearance, has proven itself to be an exceptional insulator, keeping the shelter warm even in the coldest months. The snow that accumulates on top forms an additional barrier, helping to retain the warmth inside. But the roof is not a passive element. It requires constant maintenance, regular clearing of snow, repairs when necessary, but the payoff is clear. When the storm rages outside, you can rest inside, secure in the knowledge that the roof will keep you safe. The walls, too, are an integral part of the shelter's design. The wattle and daub construction, though basic, is a testament to the farmer's knowledge of the land. The walls are not just barriers, they are part of the system that allows the shelter to stay warm. The mud and clay used in the daub mix provide insulation, while the woven branches allow the structure to breathe, preventing moisture buildup that could lead to rot. This simple yet effective design has allowed the shelter to withstand the wind and cold, keeping you safe and warm through the storm. The hearth, though quiet now, was the center of the home while the fire burned bright. The hearth's warmth was not just physical, it was symbolic of the effort and care that went into making this home a place of life. It was the source of light during the long, dark winter nights, and it provided the heat that made the shelter bearable. The fire was tended to with care, as it was the key to survival in such a harsh climate. The warmth it provided was more than just physical, it was the comfort that made the shelter feel like a home. As the night deepens and the shelter falls into a peaceful stillness, you feel a deep sense of satisfaction. The shelter has withstood the storm, and you are safe. You are warm, protected from the cold, and surrounded by the care that went into the creation of this home. The storm may have passed, but the shelter remains, a lasting testament to the resilience and ingenuity of those who built it. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin again. The roof will need to be checked, firewood gathered, and the animals cared for. The work of survival is never done. But tonight, the shelter stands firm, and for now, that is enough. The fire may have burned down to embers, but the warmth remains. The storm may have raged outside, but within these walls, there is peace. The night drifts on quietly, the shelter now settled into its familiar rhythm, the only sounds being the occasional rustle of the wind and the slow creak of the beams as the house adjusts to the cold. Outside, the snow continues its gentle fall, covering the earth in a soft, uninterrupted blanket. The storm has long passed, its fury now a memory. Inside, though, the peace remains deep and comforting. The warmth that lingered from the hearth fades slowly, but the shelter's strength endures. You close your eyes and settle deeper into your blankets, the warmth of the room already starting to leave as the fire's glow fades into the night. Yet the safety, the security that the shelter provides remains, an ever-present reassurance. Though the world outside is cold, the shelter you rest in offers protection. Its walls, its roof, its hearth have all done their part to keep you safe and comfortable through the worst of the storm. Tonight, as you rest, the simplicity of the shelter becomes apparent. The thatched roof, the wattle and daub walls, and the hearth are simple, unassuming elements. Yet they form a system of survival, working together to provide what's necessary for life, warmth, safety, and comfort. The materials used are humble, the design modest, but in their combination, they create something far greater. Each component is essential, and the care that went into maintaining them, fixing leaks, clearing the snow, gathering firewood, is what allows the shelter to serve its purpose. It's hard to imagine life without this space. In a time when survival was a daily battle against the elements, the shelter became a sanctuary, a place where the harshness of the world could be momentarily kept at bay. The medieval farmer didn't just build homes to protect from the cold. They built homes to ensure they could survive the winter, to allow life to continue in spite of the brutal conditions outside. This shelter, though simple, is a product of generations of knowledge and effort, and tonight it has proven its worth. The roof, crafted from thatch, though vulnerable to the weight of snow, has done its job. The layers of straw and reed, carefully placed, form a barrier against the cold, trapping warmth inside. The snow, while heavy, works with the roof's design, offering an additional layer of insulation. The medieval farmer, knowing the importance of regular maintenance, would clear the roof after each snowstorm to ensure that it didn't collapse. It was a task that required constant attention, but it was necessary to survive. The thatch, though not impervious to wear, had been a reliable choice for centuries, offering warmth in exchange for the labor spent maintaining it. The walls, made from wattle and daub, also played a key role in the shelter's effectiveness. The branches woven together to form the framework, covered with the mixture of clay, mud, and straw, created a barrier that kept out the wind, the cold, and the snow. The walls weren't airtight, far from it, but their porous nature allowed the shelter to breathe, preventing the buildup of moisture that could lead to rot. The simple design of the wattle and daub was a masterful use of local materials, ensuring the family inside would be protected from the cold and damp. And, at the heart of it all, the hearth. Though now only a memory of its once roaring flames, the hearth has been the central point of life in the shelter. The warmth it provided was more than just physical. It was the warmth of community, the gathering place where family came together, where food was cooked, stories were told, and a sense of security was shared. Without the hearth, the shelter would have been a cold, empty space. With it, the shelter was alive, a place where life unfolded in the warmth it provided. Tonight, the hearth is quiet, but its presence is still felt. The fire may have burned down, but the care that went into feeding it, the wood that was gathered and stored, is a reflection of the constant effort required to survive. The warmth it offered was not just a comfort, it was essential for life. The medieval farmer knew this well, and built the shelter with that knowledge in mind, knowing that survival in the coldest months depended on the fire. Tomorrow, the shelter will need attention. There will be more wood to gather, repairs to make, and tasks to complete. The work of survival is ongoing, as always, but for tonight, the shelter stands firm, and for tonight you are safe. The storm is over, the cold is held at bay, and you rest in the knowledge that your shelter is doing exactly what it was built to do: protect you. The snow falls softly outside, the world quiet and still, and within these walls there is peace. You close your eyes, comforted by the shelter's resilience and the knowledge that it will always be there to keep you warm, to protect you, and to offer refuge when the world outside grows cold and harsh. The storm has passed, the shelter remains. The night continues to stretch on, its stillness profound as the world outside remains blanketed in snow. The storm has faded into memory, leaving only a peaceful quiet in its wake. The snowflakes fall in a steady rhythm, undisturbed, reflecting the faint light of the moon. Within the shelter, the hearth's embers are now reduced to little more than glowing remnants, but their warmth lingers in the air. The shelter remains a quiet, steadfast presence against the cold, standing firm as it has always done. Tonight, as you rest, the shelter offers more than just a roof over your head. It offers a feeling of security, a sense of peace that comes from knowing that the storm has passed and the shelter has done its job. The layers of thatch, the walls of wattle and daub, the warmth of the hearth, each part of this home has been crafted with care, with the knowledge passed down through generations. Each detail, from the materials chosen to the design of the space, was made with survival in mind. And tonight, that survival continues, as the shelter stands as a silent guardian against the world outside. The fire may no longer burn bright, but its presence is still felt. The warmth it provided through the night, the glow that lit the hearth, has left its mark on the walls, the air, and the very foundation of the shelter. Without the fire, the shelter would have been cold and lifeless, a space not fit to endure the harshness of winter. But with it, the shelter became a home, a place where life could persist even in the face of nature's most difficult conditions. As you lie back, the gentle crackle of the fire now a distant memory, you feel the weight of the day slip away. The storm outside may have tested the strength of the shelter, but it has not broken it. The roof stands firm, the walls block the cold, and the hearth, though now quiet, still offers a sense of security. You are safe, warm, and protected, and for now, that is enough. The shelter was never just a place to live, it was a place built for survival. Every part of it, from the roof to the walls to the hearth, was designed to ensure warmth, safety, and comfort. The medieval farmer didn't just seek refuge from the cold, they created a space that allowed them to thrive in spite of it. They knew the land, knew how to work with it, and they built homes that reflected that knowledge. The shelter you now rest in is a testament to their wisdom and effort. It has withstood the test of time and the worst of the storm, providing exactly what was needed to survive. Tomorrow there will be more work to do. The roof will need to be checked, firewood gathered, and the animals cared for. The work of survival is never truly done, but for tonight, the shelter stands firm. The wind may rise again, the snow may fall harder, but the shelter will remain, its design and structure allowing you to rest easy through whatever challenges may come. You are protected, safe inside these walls that have been built with care, attention, and generations of knowledge. The storm has passed, the shelter stands, and for tonight, there is peace. As the night stretches on and the world remains quiet, you know that the shelter will always be there, providing warmth and protection, just as it always has. Sweet dreams, and may tomorrow bring new strength for the work ahead.